The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Greetings and felicitations. Oh, I got feedback. Sorry about that. Had a little business that was needing some attention right at the last second before we started the show. So here we are. Had to settle some commotion with the dog and the cat and children upstairs. So thanks for waiting. Thanks for sitting there waiting for me. Don't like doing that. Sorry, radio audience. You would have had an earful of 3.5 minutes of radio silence. Well, 3 minutes and 51 seconds, I think, by the time I got back down here. So my apologies to everyone who's sitting there waiting. And Sean Strike said, see and hear nothing. Well, that's what was going on. Seeing and hearing nothing because I wasn't here. So we got the show header going. And we're here. Yeah, it's only 9:03. Yeah, sorry about that, Rudy Dog, and everybody listening. That make yourself larger. I always do, Steph. You know, here I appreciate everybody that reminds me of that. But I've got it this way for the stragglers who come in. I figure for about the first 5 minutes, I like to leave the graphic up just in case there's anybody coming in that has not had a chance to see what the show is about. And so I keep myself kind of minuscule in the background or over off to the side. Rudy said, I thought maybe it was because I'm stoned and I might have missed it. No, that's not it, Rudy. Sorry to say. I know being stoned could be a lot funner than some things. But yeah, I'm only saying that, Steph, not because you said something, but because you're probably the 10th person who said something like that to me. Now, does that mean I've never forgotten to take it down? No. It just means that I like to leave it up for a few minutes just as we start introducing the show so people know what's going on. If there are any newcomers to the show tonight, sorry that we had a little bit of a late start. It wasn't even a technical thing. It was an interruption that took place that I had to wrangle upstairs. And so now that is wrangled and all is peace and well, we're going to move on with the show. Welcome to the Intrepid radio program. I am your host. I am Scotty Roberts. As most of you already know, this is my show, and it broadcasts over on the radio station. That's Subspace Odyssey Radio, and you can find that at odysseyradio.com. And that's O-D, it's spelled differently than the actual word, O-D-Y-S-Y radio.com. Go on over. You can hear this show in its audio format only. And you can hear archives of this show every day from the previous night. And you can also join us over on the YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And when you are there, you can listen to this show, join the chat room live, which is going on right now. Good evening to everybody. I might as well take a few more minutes and say hi. I like to do most of this in the pre-show, but since I had to wander up before the pre-show was done and start a little late, I just want to say hey to Steph. Good to see you, Steph. I'm larger than life as always. She says, why, thank you. You know, that's a topic. I might as well introduce this that Wendy and I are going to be doing on the next Robertson. It's the working title is a cliche. Does size matter? And so we'll probably find something more clever to say than that for the title, but there it is. So yes, I am larger than life, at least on radio. And so thank you. We're all here because you're not all there. That's it. That's perfect. That's a perfect way to put it. Thank you, Steph. And Rudy Dog, welcome to Rudy Dog. Good to see you here. Rudy Dud Dog. Sean Stroik is here. Jason Patrick is here. Who else have we got? Oh, that's it so far. I think my slow start may have curtailed people coming in. Well, let's just get it rolling then, shall we? You can also see the show, by the way, over on my Patreon page. It's playing there right now. You can see it there as a rerun. You can also join my Patreon page for as little as $4 a month. And that helps support what we do here and will hopefully help us in the long run do things that help us expand this show even more. So I'm going to remove this graphic now. Boom, we're going to go full size. Now I'm larger than life. How about that? We'll put the banner up, and I think we'll be ready to rock and roll in style here right now. Where'd it go? There it is. Boom. All right. So to everybody who's here, welcome tonight. I appreciate your taking your time and you're coming in. And I just want to start by saying the topic for tonight is something that I've never really thought of in these terms until actually very recently. And speaking poetically, can that be almost better than speaking facts? Are you going to catch more attention? Are you going to get people that listen to you more? There, in polls and studies done, there are people out there that believe that rhyme makes something seem more honest. And I think there was a large percentage, over 80% of people out there polled, felt that rhyme leads them to believe that something is more true. And so I wanted to explore that with you guys a little bit tonight. It might be a topic you've never really thought about before, and maybe one that you might say, can you really make an hour-long show out of that, or now 45 minutes long, out of a topic you could talk about in about 3 minutes? Well, I think that there's some things to look at, and there's some things to study. There is a song that I learned. It's from 1987 when it was written. I learned it when I was in the church, and by the way, when I say the church, people think capital T, the church. They think of the Roman Catholic Church. I'm just using the words the church as a generality for saying when I was in church, when I was involved in church work and ministry work, back when I was a youth pastor, there was a song that came out by one of my favorite Christian songwriter artists, and that's a man by the name of Michael Card. Now, you may have heard of Michael Card if you were into his kind of music. He had written some things that Amy Grant, frankly, in the Christian, before she delved over stepping across the line at other styles of music, she did music in the Christian world. Michael Card was an intelligent man. He was a teacher. He was somebody that really put a lot of meat into the lyrics that he wrote. And dirty limericks are pretty fun, says Steph. Yes, they can be, Miss Cuervo Queen. And and you know what? You remember them more too, don't you? You remember something that's rhyming. You remember something that has meter to it. If you remember, I read my last book here a couple of times over the months. The little book that's being published now, How to Be an Archaeologist. I wrote that in rhyme. I did that because I loved the cadence of it, and I thought that it would take the message of the story a lot further. Well, Michael Card wrote this little song that I love. I performed this with guitar back in church in the day, back when I was doing youth work. And the song says, "You and me, we use so very many clumsy words." Here, let's see if I can even do it in song. He says, "You and me, we use so very many clumsy words. The noise of what we often say is not worth being heard. When the Father's wisdom wanted to communicate his love, he spoke it in one final perfect word. He spoke the incarnation, and then so was born the Son. His final word was Jesus. He needed no other one. Spoke flesh and blood so he could bleed and make a way divine. And so was born the baby who would die to make it mine." And It's this very Christian song, obviously, but I love the intent of his words. He says, "And so the Father's fondest thought took on flesh and bone. He spoke the living, luminous word. At once his will was done. And so the transformation that in man had been unheard took place in God the Father as he spoke that final word." And then it goes into the refrain again. And there's a bridge that says, "And so the light became alive, and manna became man. Eternity stepped into time so we could understand. He spoke the incarnation, and then so was born the Son. His final word was Jesus. He needed no other one. Spoke flesh and blood so he could bleed and make a way divine. And so was born the baby who would die to make it mine." So this was his song, and you can see by his lyrics how he packed an awful lot of theological data into a song. And I like what he says in his opening lines. He says, "You and me, we use so very many clumsy words. The noise of what we often say is not worth being heard." And I think this is what I want to get at a little bit with exploring rhyme and how rhyme can actually be something that speaks louder than straight language. And so let's dig into this just a little bit because I think you'll enjoy this. Remember when I read The Highwayman by Lorena McKennitt? Made it into a song, but it was by Alfred Noyes over 100 years ago. I believe he wrote that, or about 100 years ago. And how powerful the story was. That was the one of the highwaymen who robbed, and the redcoats came and tied his love up to the window, and she shot herself in front of the guards in order to warn him with her death. That poem, the power of the rhyme in that was really something, and I think really something to me. And it was a powerful thing that carried on. So poetic language as more truthful is kind of the theme I'm after tonight. Rhyming language can influence how people perceive information. Why do you think they did it on Sesame Street? Because kids would understand that. Professor Bauer says in the chat room, "As a loquacious, cunning linguist, I approve of the contextual content." There you go. And so there's 4 points I want to bring out with this. Number one is that subtle language, the features of subtle language, can influence how we judge a statement's meaning. The subtlety of language. You ever notice that? The way we say things, how we say things? If you want to win people over, do you use bold, brash language? Sometimes you have to. Or if you're trying to negotiate with somebody, you use more subtle language. You try to win people by winning them over. Diplomacy, being diplomatic. Number two, rhyming sentences are often judged as more accurate. And this is known as rhyme as reason effect. The rhyme as reason effect. And this is something that was looked into by a bunch of psychologists. And psychologists or psychiatrists, I can't remember. But they looked into this. They did, of course, studies to test this theory. And the rhyme as reason effect brought out that rhyming sentences are often judged by people as being more accurate. Number three, rhymes appear to improve our ease of information processing, thereby increasing our perceptions of accuracy. So you catch that? The easier it is for information to be processed, the easier it is to retain that information. That's why I wrote the one book I did in poetic form or rhyming form. The fourth point is being aware of this effect can guard us against the influence of rhyming Advertising slogans. Why do you think advertising slogans, a lot of them rhyme? Why do they have jingles? That was to get you to remember what they were trying to sell you. Hold the pickles, hold the lettuce. Special orders don't upset us. All we ask is that you let us serve it your way. That was a big old Burger King ad way back in the day when I was a kid. So the way we talk, the way we chatter, really seems to matter. If our words are a delight, people think that we might be right. So the more delightful your words, the more believable your words. Now, the problem with that is anybody who's trying to pull the wool over your eye could be a sweet speaker, and they could sweeten their words. They could put rhymes to their words. They could do whatever they want to try to sweeten the pot to draw you in. But you might shudder at that clumsy attempt at poetry I just gave you. But research really suggests that there's a good reason to include rhymes in everyday language. Do you do that much? Something like that or such? I use rhyming all the time just for fun. Just for kicking the pants. I do it when I'm serious. I used to be a really big study of William Butler Yeats and his poetry. And I wanted to speak the way he spoke. There was someone that approached him once and said, and if you don't remember who William Butler Yeats is, Yeats was the poet laureate of Ireland back at the turn of the last century, 120 years ago. And he was approached on the street once and somebody said, "How are you today, sir?" And he says, "Not so well, I can only speak in prose today." So sometimes rhyming is where it's at. Not as a going concern. Oh, don't go into his office. He always tells you something in a rhyme. Or as Steph said, a limerick. There once was a man from Nantucket. And so you might think that our choice of words matters for how we're perceived. And you know what? You would be right. And sometimes if you include rhyming words, people might look at you funny, but you might gain a reputation for keeping people's attention. The importance of language becomes evident when looking at names and terminology, which carry surprisingly strong meanings. For example, recent research shows that the language used to describe health threats can affect people's memory and their risk perceptions. And the words that we choose can influence how well our listeners take in new information. On this show, the words I use, I have to watch what I say or think about what I say or how I deliver it, the tone of voice I use. If I am fun and if exciting is a good word to use, you're exciting to listen to, doesn't matter what the message is right off the bat if you draw people in by the way you speak. And then once they hear you speak, and you start using very appealing modes of communication, poetry being one of them, or at least rhyming words now and then, or the kind of words that say, I like to infuse a lot of Shakespeare into my common language. And I used to do that more when I wrote. When I would write little essays or posts for social media, I'm talking now 10, 11, 12 years ago, I used to rather fashion myself as a bit Shakespearean, only in modern language. I wanted to use my words to draw people in. Steph, you can finish that one. How's it go? How's it go again? I forgot. There once was a man from Wisconsin. So if anybody can make up a lyric for that or a limerick for that, let me know. So the use of figurative speech, metaphor, all of that kind of things, for example, can make abstract concepts easier to grasp. So sometimes our choice of words can even influence people's belief systems. And this is where poetic language plays an unexpected role. So this is what I was talking about. It's called the rhyme as reason effect. Most people are going to agree that poetry is pretty. A lot of guys, the majority of guys out there are going to have poetry. I never listen to this stuff. Some people deem it as something that is, it's too flowery, it's too romantic, it's whatever it might be. I don't talk that way. I know guys that said, I don't read poetry. And that's some of them if they even read at all. I know some people that won't read at all. They don't even read. And so I try to raise my kids to want to read. And my older daughters like to read. My son Sam, he's a guy. When he was a boy, he didn't read all that much. Not his big thing. Now, on the other hand, my 3 younger kids, Flynn loves reading. I just saw that he bought himself the Lord of the Rings trilogy of books. The Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, and the Rise of the King. He bought Tolkien's books, and he bought them in the little leather-bound set that goes in the little box and it sits on his shelf. They came back from Disney World, and he had brought one of those with him to read in his spare time. Now, Flynn is not a geeky kid. He's out there, and he's into a lot of stuff. He's into sports. He's into things, but he likes to read, too. And I love that. He likes to read. My 12-year-old daughter, on the other hand, Rowan, she just told us yesterday, I don't like to read. I don't read because I was suggesting a book for her. And she used to have us buy her books. I think she's got a bunch of books that she thought would be interesting that she doesn't read. I think reading expands our vocabularies. Reading, if you didn't know that, try that. Sit down and it's a long experiment. Over the next 6 months, read 1 book a month. 1 book. Doesn't have to be long. Be a novel. Doesn't have to be anything, weird. Pick up a good novel, read it. I guarantee you at the end of the 6 months, your vocabulary is going to change a little bit because you're going to pick up not just language and words being used, but you're going to pick up turn of phrase. I picked up something, I don't know where it came from, but it was reading some Irish authors. But I picked up the phrase many, many, many years ago, the phrase, to be sure. It was something that I saw in a book that was used over and over again. Might have been the book Trinity by Leon Uris. But, and he was a dead man to be sure, Irish. And I don't know if that's a going saying in Ireland, but that particular turn of phrase was one of the things I picked up by reading. And so most people are going to agree. Poetry is nice to listen to. It's pretty. It's nice to read sometimes. Listening to rhyming song lyrics is fun. And reading a carefully penned poem can touch people's feelings. However, research suggests that rhymes aren't just aesthetically pleasing. When sentences include rhyming words, they're often judged as more truthful. And the surprising fact is called the rhyme as reason effect. Now, I want to look for something here. I'm wondering if I even have this. I've got a rather naughty poem that I wrote. Let's see if I even have it. Let's see if it comes up anywhere. If I've got it, I don't know where it is. It might not be here. I might not have it anymore. I may have just spared you from maybe there's something embarrassing to me or something where people go, I can't believe he's reading that on air. Let's see. It's called Ode to. Hold on. Wait for it. I wasn't planning this to. So let's see if it's in here. Ode comes up. Let's see if it's in here alphabetically. I'm looking because, damn it, I'm now set on wanting to share this with you, and it's naughty. Let's see. Oh, look at that. I don't think I have it. Try one more thing. Nope. Okay, this is something I wrote when I was on the show with Rocky. And I must have it saved on another disc or something like that. But it's, if you will pardon me, this is how bad it is. It was raunchy, and hopefully nobody nastifies me because of this. You ready for this? You want to hear this? Just the title is all I remember. It was called Ode to Titties and Quim. Okay? It was a nasty, not overly nasty. It was done in very flowery language. You would have thought me a cunning linguist by listening to that. Ode to Bubes, says Steph. Yeah, it was something like that. And I'm going to take one more look, one other place, because I do remember opening it once and saving it, but I do not, for the life of me, remember where I did. Some of you might be good. Say, good, I hope he doesn't find it. Let's see. Ode. Nope, that's not. That's not it. That's not it. Okay. I'll try just the one keyword and see if it comes up. Nope. It's not coming up, folks. Okay. So it's on a disc somewhere. That's all. So you've been saved for the night from that. I will, I think, probably find that and read that to you at some time in the future. Tonight just would have been the perfect time. I don't remember anything about the rhyme, but it was a gloriously artistic way to talk about sex. And the way I said it, it was, I think we read it on Rocky's radio show 3-4 years ago. Something like that was when I wrote that. And it was something in rhyme. And I have noticed that if I want to write something and I want to say something quick and I want to get it out there, I can write in rhyme very quickly. Sometimes if I'm writing like for this book, the archaeology book, I would have to have thought through a couple of things to make sure that it was something that was palatable, something that I could publish. But let's see. Do I have it in here? I am curious. I wanted to call up for you something I've read in here before, and just to give you a couple of ideas. When I was writing this book, How to Be an Archaeologist, I could have written that straightforward, and I could have made it language that everybody could relate to. I could have said, well, to be an archaeologist, first, there's this story of this young boy, and he did this one day. This young boy went out to do this, and he found this pipe, and he wanted to find it. I could have told the story in that respect. And so instead, I start the story, and it's illustrated. And you've heard this before if you're a regular listener to the show. I just start the whole book with, you had no idea. You were just out to play, wading in the shallows of the river that day. When your bare toes dislodged it, broke it loose from the clay, a pipe carved in meerschaum, 100 years in the cray. Someone had lost it or tossed it away off the bridge in your town that spanned River Cray. The pipe sank to the bottom, and for the next 100 or so years lay quietly waiting for you to appear. The pipe's stem was broken, the bowl caked with muck. The hand-carved face was intact. What luck! A man with a bicorn hung over his brow looked you straight in the eyes and implored you somehow to take the first step on a path that would lead to the rest of your life and your life's works creed. I'll go just a little further with this. With your riverbed fine tucked deep in your pocket, it was up to the town you sped like a rocket, where there on the corner of High Street and Crockett, was a curious old shop where the keeper's old docket could surely tell all of the pipe in your pocket. So much to be learned, so much history discovered from an old ancient pipe that you found underwater. And what did the artist who took time to create, and what of the artist who took time to create it? What were his reasons? Why did he not date it? From whom was it made? For whom was it made? Why was it important? Could these questions be answered, or would they ever remain dormant? Carefully, delicately, you clean off the tarnish, add a new stem and a light coat of varnish. Up on your bookshelf, you set up a display where it will stand and remain until that one day when the right time arrives to light it and smoke it. Only you will know when, and you will not postpone it. So, writing the story of this boy who becomes an archaeologist, I wrote this in rhyme to make the message not only palatable for everyone, palatable for children. Dads could read it even if they don't like poetry. Moms could read it and enjoy it. But to get the message across, that kids are going to remember those lines of rhyme. And so this is where the surprising fact called the rhyme is reason effect comes and plays a part. Early experiments on the rhyme is reason effect asked participants to judge the accuracy of rhyming statements. For example, woes unite foes, or bros before hoes. Heard that one. They compared the rattlings to statements of the same meaning, which didn't include a rhyme. For example, woes unite enemies. Now, most participants rated the rhyming sequence as much more accurate. Woes unite foes. Against woes unite enemies. Now, maybe they're both true, but the first statement was one that most people found to be more accurate. Most participants rated it as more accurate. The follow-up research confirmed the findings and offered explanations for the surprising effect. It appears that the pleasing nature of rhyming language makes it easier to process and take in. Is this just a human mind thing? Is it an IQ level thing? I think people with very high IQs can enjoy poetry. So it appears that the pleasing nature of rhyming language makes it easier to process and take in. And this relative ease, or so-called processing fluency, makes the statements appear more truthful. It isn't just rhyming language that improves processing fluency. Related research shows that symmetric statements, for example, success is getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you get. Those symmetric statements, those also increase people's perception of truthfulness. It's a perception of truthfulness, mind you. I'm not saying it makes their statement more truthful. The perception by people when this form of communication language is used makes it seem more palatable, therefore makes it seem more useful, makes it seem more truthful. Now, of course, using rhymes or other aesthetic language features to judge a statement's accuracy isn't necessarily a reliable strategy. The rhyme is reason effect can therefore be exploited, for example, by clever marketing firms when advertising their products. A study by a Norwegian research firm found that rhyming advertising slogans were perceived as more persuasive compared to their non-rhyming counterparts. So companies could therefore capitalize on these insights and use rhymes to tempt their customers into buying their products. Or it's like catchphrases. Can you hear me now? Y'all remember where that started? Can you hear me now? Everybody says that now, and everybody kind of chuckles when they say it. 10, 12 years after the fact. Can you hear me now? That was a Sprint ad for cell phone reach. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Everybody says it. It's something that caught on. Back when I was a kid, don't squeeze the Charmin. by Mr. Whipple. Anybody? Whipple. Anybody remember that? Niall says over in the chat room, well, rhyme was made a sort of psychological go-between, especially in the 19th and 20th centuries. Yes, it was. Bingo. It was a go-between. So using, how about songs, military songs? Back in the day, we're talking 18th century, 17th, 16th, 15th century. There were rhyming battle songs. Look at sea shanties. Heave away ho, heave away ho. Or going down to old Maui, me boys, going down to old Maui. We're homeward bound from the Arctic round, rolling down to old Maui. And so sea shanties, singing songs for work. Companies could therefore capitalize on all these things to try to tempt people into buying their products. So using language to your advantage is the key point with this. A growing body of research highlights the importance of carefully chosen language to communicate successfully. Surprisingly, even subtle aesthetic features, such as a rhyming word here or there, or symmetric sentence structures, can sway people's judgment. So who would have thought that poetic sentences appear more accurate? I liked the Scarlet Pimpernel. Remember that? Now, this isn't advertising, it's something, but it's stuck to my mind because it's poetry. Remember the Scarlet Pimpernel? He wrote a little poem. The Scarlet Pimpernel, if you don't look it up, Pimpernel. Look up the Scarlet Pimpernel. It was a story set during the French Revolution. An Englishman who was an aristocrat, kind of a, if you would, the superhero of his day. His costume during the day was like Clark Kent, a bumbling newspaper man who wrote good articles, or he wouldn't have a job. But he was really Superman. Scarlet Pimpernel was a fop. Oh, with the white cake makeup and the little dot here, the beauty dot. And, he has a cravat that he ties. And he's an aristocrat. And that was his cover, for he was really a swordsman, and he was there to help rescue those who were being oppressed by the, whatever your politics on that might be when you think about it. He was trying to save the royal family and the royals from being beheaded by rescuing them and taking them to England. But he writes a poem as the fop about the Pimpernel, and he's trying to cover his tracks a bit. And he's with a bunch of these aristocrats, and he says, they seek him here, they seek him there. Those Frenchies seek him everywhere. Is he in heaven, or is he in hell? The damned, elusive Pimpernel. And that was his poem. So he did that in the setting of his times. He wrote that, if you read the book, he did that to cover his tracks and to make people remember this fun little ditty that he had written and to draw their attention away from him actually being the Pimpernel. And so this is what we do. We can inflict some of these things. Many were Capstan songs. You're right, Jason. Jody calls rhyme. Yes. We did that with the Highland Regiment. We would do shanty songs around the fire at public events. Great times, by the way. Niles says poetic structure appears more effective simply because it takes more work to make one word rhyme with another. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. For me, sometimes it feels good. It's natural. I just let it flow. Other times it doesn't. I've written songs. I've written many songs. And I wrote one for my daughters when they were 5, and they're now just about 32. The Man in the Moon. It says, Abby was talking to the man in the moon, who was a little bit more than a half of himself. She said, "Why are you hiding? Are you sad? Are you cold?" She sat down and listened to his whisper on the breeze, as his face shined a light through the trees. Abby said brightly, "Here's my sister Bryn. She heard we were talking and wants to join in." Two little girls danced in the night in an ambient pool of the moon's sultry light. The chorus says, "Before you were born, I was old, I was gray, cold and lonely and longing for the day when someone would climb up and see the light in my face as see the light on my face as I shined on their place, and with eloquent grace they would talk to me, leave their reason behind. Come talk to me soon, I'm the man in the moon." And of course, it's different when you put it to music. So you can say so much more sometimes by placing rhyme together. I had written that, and I quoted this not long ago, that one song that was religious. It was very much for my youth group. It was about living a life like a Christ-like life, meaning emulating what Christ wanted you to be as a believer. And the song started, it said, I don't remember how the actual verse goes off the top of my head, but it said, the chorus said, "If I could walk upon the water, if I could see you stand before my eyes, or hear you speak to me like Moses heard from within your burning bush disguise, would I really gain your power and never disappoint you, Lord?" And then it goes on from there. There's more words, and I can't remember it all. It's been years, over 30 years since I wrote that. So we know about this rhyme as a reason effect, and the power of words more generally provides a strategic advantage. It might help you spot the effects of carefully designed adverts and commercials. And indeed, simply remembering to differentiate between a sentence's aesthetic aspects and its meaning might be enough to guard against the effect, especially when it's used to try to sell you something. Additionally, you could use your knowledge or of effective language in everyday communications. For example, with children, most kids enjoy rhyming sentences and song lyrics. "I will not eat that green eggs and ham. I will not eat it, Sam, I am." They remember that. And as a bonus, rhymes might be a persuasive teaching tool. It's a time to switch up. Never-ending repeats of wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round, round and round, with a rhyming song about the goodness of broccoli. I don't know if I'd buy into that one, but if it's kitschy enough, it might catch on. Or how about this motivational tidy up song by UK children's musician Nick Cope? It's a favorite in Great Britain, called "Why Is the Sky Blue?" Now, I don't know it, or I'd sing it to you. But if you're from Great Britain, you might recognize that. So this idea that rhyme as reason is one that plays off, Rush Limbaugh used to say, words mean things, in an advertisement that he was doing for, I can't remember the name of the product this many years later, but it was a product that you'd listen to on tape while you're doing other things, like learning a language. It would teach you a new word every day, kind of thing, and expand your vocabulary. And the idea was that the better your vocabulary, the better somebody's going to perceive you. Unless they perceive you as somebody who's really trying to push the envelope on purpose. I developed a healthy vocabulary just reading books when I was younger. And by the way, being an author and somebody who loves language, I hated reading until I was out of college before I ever started picking up books for fun. And then my own edification, sort of. Niall says, words are tools and that they have a particular purpose. I write lyrics about poetry, as I consider poetry foppish, but when put to music in a meaningful way, it's incredible. Isn't that the truth, Niall? You can write a poem about whatever given topic. Choose romance and think of some of the droopiest, idiotic love poems you've ever heard. But you put those to music, and you might have something that really takes on a whole different meaning. So music, and we've talked about music before and its applications. How can we use music to express words? That might be a whole nother topic for another time. Music to express our words. And there is, you remember in the Logos of time, we talked about the great Logos. It was a Greek concept that what am I trying to say with this? That spoke of the great beginnings of the universe, the Logos, the great Logos. But there's a Logos of our time. It's large language models as a creative force of humanity. This is a whole nother topic, but I wanted to hit this for just a minute. And I've got my notes on this that are exit full screen. There it is. And I've got my notes on this that I want to pull a couple of things out of before we finish this topic for the radio, which we've only got about 4 minutes left. Early narratives underscore the influence of speech and words in shaping perspectives and creativity. The invention of writing systems was crucial for advancing human communication and thought. And AI and large language models are pivotal in enhancing creativity and innovation. So the evolution of human language has been inextricably linked with our conceptualization of creativity and even creation itself. And this narrative, which spans millennia, is enriched by an ancient concept of the Logos, a term embodying the principles of reason, word, and order. And in philosophical and theological context, Logos represents the fundamental creative force, an idea that invites us to ponder whether language, with all its complexity and nuance, is not merely a product of creation, but also a catalyst for creation itself. Language being the catalyst for creation itself. And that language is a fundamental creative force. Like Niall was just saying, you take a poem and put it to music. The work's been done on the poem. Now take the extra work and write the music. And look what you've got. It's a creative process to create something that's amazing. So a fundamental creative force is the way we say things, the way we express. And we're entering this kind of cognitive era in humanity these days. And it's propelled by large language models. We stand at this unique moment to explore the enduring connection between the emergence of language and the profound notion of the Logos. Notice how the creation of creativity is embodied in a word that means book, basically, or words, logo, Logos, and the boundless creative potential behind it. And with this, I have all the ancient origins of creation, language as the instillation of thought, written language as transformative milestone in human history, took root in Sumer, Akkad, southern Mesopotamia around 3500 to 3000 BCE. So you're looking at 5,000-ish years ago. And this early form of writing, known as cuneiform, involved creating distinctive marks in the wet clay. Before that, like I was talking last week or the week before about that documentary I saw about the cave, the ancient people who were not human, but were humanoid probably part of our chain, had buried their dead in the cave, and they had made scratchings on the wall that had repetitive marks, which means they were expressing language. So this has been with us for a long time. And this is something to explore a little bit more when we have a little bit more time. And so there's a lot here that we should talk about when it comes to language, to poetry, to singing, to writing music. And we'll do that. But for now, guess what? Cave of Bones, that's it. Watched it. You got to tell me about that in the Captain's Cabin, your take on it, Niall. So everybody over on the radio, we got to go. We got to let you go. So come on over to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Scotty Roberts, if you want to join us in the chat room for the Captain's Cabin. Live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid radio program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey folks, this is Scotty Roberts, and this is the Intrepid radio broadcast. I've been broadcasting for about 20 years now, covering such topics as science, politics, the paranormal, weird science, weird world history, archaeology, and the paranormal. Everything from ghosts to cryptids to creepy things that go bump in the night. So every week I bring you 3 new episodes. Come and join my channel and also be a patron to this site. So see the details below, and we'll see you here. Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep,
Did you guys hear that?
I heard that.
I miss you, Dave. All right, folks, welcome to the Captain's Cabin. And yes, you are right. I see some of the discussion going on there. Rudy, the radio audience leaves us at 10:58 sharp. Our show lasts really, when you think about it, add it up, it's only 55 minutes. And it starts at 9:03, runs for 55 minutes, and we're out at 9:58. So we 2 minutes before the top of the hour, we're out, and it's now 3 minutes after the top of the hour. So we go about 5 minutes with the break before we get back into the captain's cabin. So here we are. He's outside using the resources. The resources. So there we go. Our radio show is over. It ended 5 minutes ago, a little bit more, and we're now into the captain's cabin. It might not be a long captain's cabin tonight because I've got some other things going on in the house that I might need to tend to. And it's holiday week, though. It was a fairly mellow day. How was your day today? How was your Christmases? This is the first show we've done since Christmas. And Wendy and I are going to be doing a Robertson, which was supposed to be yesterday. No, yes, today is Wednesday. Yesterday. My week's all cut up when we've got a Monday holiday. So didn't do a show Monday night because of Christmas night. And I thought, should I do one or not? And I thought, well, let's give it a break. And Tuesday, we were going to do Robertson. My day was screwed up, and I messed up my day yesterday, and I had all kinds of work for a client that I'd been saving from last week. So I got that done, and then so Wendy and I decided to reschedule. We're either doing it tomorrow. Wendy and I are doing it tomorrow, same time, 4 p.m. in the afternoon, 5 p.m. Eastern, or we're saving it till Tuesday. I can't remember what I decided with her, but I think we're on for tomorrow. So tomorrow, an odd day, because guess what? It's Christmas week. It's holiday week. So things aren't working as normally as normal. So tomorrow for Robertson at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Now, that'll be interesting because I've got to run my daughter to the doctor. But that's at 1:30. I should have 2.5 hours should be enough time for what she has to have done. So a little pre-op. She's got to get her ears operated on again. You know, not major surgery. It's the whole tubes and ears. If those of you were parents or if you had them when you were a kid, she's now 12 and she's got to get that all replaced. So one of them fell out and was giving her a problem. So I say save it for Tuesday after holiday time, Scotty. Maybe that might be the thing to do, Barbie D. I'm not sure. I'll find out what Wendy would like to do. And I will defer to her wishes on that. We got Niall coming in. Hey, Niall, how you doing?
Hey, man.
How's
Good
it going?
to see you. Great. Yourself? I'm not going to wish you a happy Christmas or a happy New Year because
all right.
I really can't stand all that stuff.
Christmas is over.
Yeah, thank God. You know, it's always a very stressful time of year for me. You know,
Yeah.
I think everyone is different. You know, I think people tend to think of this as a jolly time, and but I think as the years go by, we begin to realize that it's not really.
Yeah.
It's just it's
It can be
just
an awfully stressful time.
it can
I
be
like
very stressful.
I like to fall back. I talked about this the other day. I don't know if it was Sunday. I like to fall back on some tradition. I like some traditional holiday celebrations. It's okay for that. If we could take all the trappings of stress and I got to do this and I got to be there and I got to buy this and I got to buy something for everybody. If we can get out of that mode, that's better. And I think we've kind of done that around here in our household.
Yeah, I think what I mean more so than anything else, Scotty, is that the zeitgeist, for
Yes.
want of a better word, is changing. I think I might have
Yes.
alluded to this in earlier shows. It's kind of changing as the years go on. People are not really on board with the whole Christmas thing the way they used to
Right.
be. Even children aren't really, that excited about it, because
It's weird. Yeah.
the environment that they're living in. Everything is at the touch of a button. Everything is there for them anyway. So
Yes.
this whole sense of being in awe of this big red man from the clouds, with his reindeer. I
Yeah.
mean, for a lot of kids, I mean, you say that to a lot of kids now, even at 8, 9, 7, 8
I
years
think
old.
kids are a little
They're,
more sophisticated than that
yeah,
nowadays.
they'll
Yeah.
laugh at you and say, "What are you talking about?" Yeah, So this whole idea is kind of old hat, and it's about. I tend to agree. I don't want to sound grouchy about it because grinchy or grouchy.
Right.
In that, I think it's about time it kind of changed. Really,
Yeah.
because first of all, um, when it comes to January, people used to be, or still are, got into so much debt that come January they're suicidal. So,
Right.
so what is the point in having a good time at Christmas and then being suicidal in January?
Right. Right.
And
Hang on, Jason.
ironically, suicidal rates in January are the highest of the year. So go figure. I don't think it doesn't take a genius to figure out that there is a connection there somewhere.
Sure. Now, something I said the other day was that if you want to celebrate Jesus' birthday on Christmas, be my guest. Go ahead. Not my deal. If what you do. I don't have any problem with Jesus' birthday linking at people. I'm an historian, so it drives me a little batty. But at the same time, I go, if that's where people, the church, the religion wants to choose to plug in a celebration, I said, it's like celebrating my son's birthday,
Yeah.
which is in August. We're going to celebrate it in April this year.
Yeah.
Do something, take a nice trip for your birthday. We can do whatever we want. But I see your point and I understand your point. Is there is a time where it's like, have we reached a new paradigm with this? Ought we be
I think so, Scotty.
changing things?
Uh,
Hey,
I-
Jason.
I-
Hey,
I-
what's going
hey,
on?
Jason, how are you doing? I think it is time to
Doing
you
well.
know, to change the way we bring up children, especially when it comes to Santa and the red-nosed reindeers and the bloody the whole nightmare scenario that introduces,
Yes.
and the financial stresses and strains and giving into this fantasy for the sake of keeping the children happy. I mean, we've all heard the old adage of kids spend more time playing with the boxes than they do with the actual toys that they get on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So I do see that amongst my nieces and nephews and my friends' children. They're not that pushed, about the Santa thing anymore. It's like we're not too sure. Yeah, Santa, he might have come, but they're not as excited. They don't like run down at dawn. Has he been here? Has he been here? We
Yes.
don't really see that anymore. It's like it's almost like they have one up on us. They're kind of like, yeah, we're going to pretend he's been here, but we know he hasn't been here, you know. So kids are very sophisticated these days, you know,
Yes.
because from a very young age they've been taught to be that way in this generation and the last generation. So yeah, so
Jeremy here is mimicking, not mimicking. He's saying, because you're not mimicking me. He's saying the same kind of thing I've said before. He says, I want to keep children dreaming and happy at all costs. The world will be shitty enough when they have to deal with it. I used to say a long time ago, back in the 90s, when I first had my kids, I said, I want to maintain my children's innocence as long as possible. And if that means I'm going to tell them a big, bold, fat, juicy lie about Santa Claus, I'm going to do it. And it's just one thing, you know, but lots of other areas where I said I want to maintain my kids.
I'd actually bring Jeremy up on that and say, you know, if you want to keep your children dreaming and happy at all costs, the world will be shitty enough when they have to deal with it.
Yeah.
That means they'll be children all their lives. You know,
well,
you know, you have to be happy. This is your happy period,
while they're children, I think is the idea.
Yeah. I know. I know what he means.
Yeah.
But still, it's kind of unrealistic in this day and age. I think you'd agree. It's kind of like
to a certain. I got into an interesting conversation over on. I get sucked into these every now and then. George Takei's Instagram. The guy is a marauding activist, progressive activist. And everything that he writes down or his husband writes down or whatever it is, whoever's managing his stuff, is all so pointedly activist, anti-conservative and whatever, blah, blah, blah. Well, he wrote something about some guy who's a conservative who had other conservatives condemning him because he was gay. All right? And it opened up a conversation. And of course, George's approach was not
condemning him because he was gay.
Yeah, making fun of him. Let's put it that way. Okay. And people were saying, well, you know, this. And I said, you know, from progressives, I said, here's my stance on this. I said, I wouldn't expect much. How was I putting it? The interpretation of these events might be different than you think. I said, everybody go look up the story if you want to get facts and not an activist point of view. And we got to talking. There were guys right away, of course, condemning me. Well, you're obviously just a Trumper, a Trumpet or whatever. And, you know, all these insults start coming out. I'm going, well, we haven't even been talking about who I'm going to vote for or who I did vote for. What we're talking about is conservatism. And I said, I will guarantee you, I know more conservatives that don't give a rat's ass what you want to do when it comes to your sexuality. It's your business. And I said, it's not my business. I said, I don't care what you do. And I overemphasized. I don't care. It's not my business. You do what you want. And you are free in this country to make that choice. I said, but put on the brakes. I said, up until the point where you want to foist that on my children. And I said, if you want to teach my children that that's okay, I said, I don't want them learning about that. I said, I don't teach my third graders about heterosexual sex. Why should I be talking to them about gay sex? Why should I allow somebody else by the educational system in our country to talk to my kids about gays?
I'm struggling a little bit, Scotty. Sure. What has that got to do with Santa?
Nothing. It's a belief system.
It's not. Yeah, it's not about
talking
Santa.
About belief systems.
Yeah.
Keep up now. Come on, man.
The belief in Santa. All of a sudden, we're on to sexuality.
And the only reason I bring that up
is part of the show does. It wanders.
It does wander. It has wandering feet of its own.
Yeah. No, but still, I want to hear your point about.
I just go for the ride sometimes. I let my mouth go and I ride. Let's ride. Okay. Anyway,
go ahead.
So we got into this conversation, and it ended up with me saying, you know, there are certain belief systems that we put into play. I said, you can call the whole gender thing and trans and all that. I said, it's really a belief system about things, because scientifically it doesn't hold water. I said, it's a belief system about what you want to be, what you choose to be, or what you believe you were predetermined to be, that you had no choice in it. I said, I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. I said, all I want to do is not have somebody tell my kids what they should do. This all goes back to me talking about preserving my children's innocence. There's a certain innocence I want them to
which
have.
involves telling them what they should believe.
To a certain extent. Now, my 3 kids now, we never, maybe this is to our family's detriment. I didn't teach my kids about God and about Jesus, although I left it open. We talk about it. I've written things about it. I've sung songs. My son, who is now 14, when he was 4 and 5, 6, at bedtime, he used to say to me, Dad, sing me some songs about Jesus. I'd say, okay, because we talked about it. And there was one song that said, when the universe fell from his fingertips, he decided he wanted some fellowship, but the man and the woman would not submit. Look at all the theology packed into that. So he made a better way. When the moment was right, he sent his own son, who would open the way so that everyone could have hope and beliefs that when time was done, he'd be able to make us one. And the chorus said, to hear with my heart, to see with my soul, to be guided by a hand I cannot hold, to trust in a way that I cannot see. That's what faith must be. And so I sang him that song. I'd sing him songs like that. And nothing deep and heady or anything like that.
I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed, Scotty. I mean, you've always been a very emotional man,
I am.
and you've always been somebody I greatly admire for that attribute. Because I certainly wasn't singing songs to my kids, like that at all. And if I was, it was probably something that was in my own head, and totally self-absorbed. So it wouldn't have come across as a crossover song, or something that you believed in and they could believe in, So it wasn't, so it's something I've always admired about you. You're very, you seem to have your finger on the pulse.
Well, I think
I've always, I know you're conservative, and
Sure.
it's not my thing. But on the other hand, you're also one of the most emotional and agreeable men I've ever met in my entire life. And it makes no difference really what your politics are or how you feel about things if you express them in certain ways.
I look at it this
sense.
way. How many times have we heard from comedians and things we've learned about comedians? The first time I heard anything about this was Peter Sellers, who
I can rock.
Yes,
it's probably one of the worst examples you could give.
Yes. Well, they were interviewing him once, way back in the 80s, and he said, and it was really eye-opening. You didn't see much of this kind of thing up to this point. They're interviewing him. He's wearing a suit and tie, and they ask him some question about his childhood or where does he get his comedy. And he says, oh, and he kind of looks down and he says, my comedy comes from a very dark place.
Yeah.
He says, I was a very, very sad, very depressed little boy and young man. And he went on to talk about that a little bit, but that made a big impression on me. And I think the way I am with my kids, perhaps I would liken it to that. The thing we all understood was that most good comedians come from a very dark place. Now, I think with my kids and in the kinds of teaching I do and all of that, not necessarily a dark place, but it all comes from a place of passion that's down under the surface. I can sing a simple song like I just sang for you, to hear with my heart, to see with my soul, and so on. it can choke me up. And there's nothing superlatively theological about that song. The simplicity of it maybe is what it is.
Yeah.
It's the combination of lyric with music.
Yes.
It's certain turns of musical phrase.
And also,
that to me.
it's slight contradiction. I mean this in a good way, a very good way. There's a slight contradiction there when it comes to you, Scotty, because of your stance on aspects of the world that surrounds us. The softness of your nature as a man is very rare. The softness of your emotions and how you express your emotions towards your children and how you express yourself in.
I'm sometimes brutal to my children.
Oh yeah, but it doesn't matter.
You said something interesting that kind of sticks out to me a couple of times now, in sort of different
Niall
ways.
or me?
Niall. But the rarity of these things, and I think maybe it might be, even if it's just a thought experiment on your part, or on all of our part. Is it so much that it is rare, or is it because of our environs, which we surround ourselves, that something that isn't all that rare becomes rare? Because who we have surrounded ourselves with, the environments we choose to exist in terms of interpersonal relationships and all of that. Like Scotty was saying earlier, he can name off, more conservative people who don't care about anybody's sexuality or anything like that,
Right.
than you can shake a stick at. But then you hop on to any of, the rabbit holes of the internet and social media, and what you hear is the squeaky wheel getting the grease in terms of complaining about conservatives or people with a politically conservative leaning, and they're all stupid fundamental Christians. They all hate this, they all hate that, da 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 da.
Sure.
When we immerse ourselves in environments where that train of thought, and from the other side too, not specifically that one, but you know what I mean, that train of thought is the persistent train of thought. It is. We are products of our own environment. I would say a beautiful example that I've been dealing with that with today. There's two of them actually. Probably the one I'll go with, because one deals with Christopher Titus, and some exchanges he and I have had on his Instagram page. But the other one really that I think is more illustrative of this is on a guy I follow on Instagram. He's a young first lieutenant in the Army, does all these Instagram videos. Some of them are very funny and very insightful. But he started ragging on, and I know I'm opening a can of worms with this one, but he started ragging on Baby It's Cold Outside.
Oh, yeah.
And the level of hate for that song,
Vitriol, and
the absolute vitriol.
But I don't.
And it's one of those things where, and you talked about this earlier, with context and with understanding and with language, right? Sometimes I worry about whether we're smart enough anymore as a society to understand nuance and context within language. But
before we disappear down a rabbit hole, which now that Bauer is here, I know we're going to do.
We've got Josh Kemp here too.
I wanted to say, JB, just what I admire about Scotty is his emotional honesty.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well,
and that's what I meant by that. So it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on or what you believe in, or
right,
you think you should be doing what, or his emotional honesty, it just drips off him, in waves. His goodness of heart, his all right, he's a little conservative for me.
I'm gonna wait for the lightning bolt.
I'm sorry.
There it comes. There's the butt.
I'm sorry about talking about you like you're not in the room, Scotty.
No, that's okay.
But
go ahead. Keep going.
I'm not a Trumpist. I'm not a Trumpist at all. I hate that man. To
Well,
death.
well,
But
it's
I will say that what I love about Scotty far outweighs his political leanings. You know, he's one of these rare males who wears his heart literally on his sleeve. And I'll say this to everybody here: he wears his heart literally on his sleeve. He is the most emotionally engaging man I've probably ever spoken to, and I've spoken to quite a few emotionally engaging men. And the difference, he has something which I don't have, you know, and I will freely admit it. I don't have that emotional universality that, even though Scotty, you're conservative, you have an emotional aspect to you which is kind of universal. And the way you treat your children, and you treat your wife and your family, and the way you speak, and those little rhymes, you know, I aspire to do some of those things with my art and my lyrics and stuff like that. I sometimes feel, you know, I come on the show and I feel like, you know, I might as well just give it up, because this guy's got it all figured out, you know. And I'm talking about you, Scotty. So that's how much I admire Scotty. So I'm not sure whether that answers your question, JP.
I had a minister friend of mine once that said, Scotty, sometimes you got to shut up and take, he said, showing grace to somebody is also listening to what they have to say and accepting it. He says, people have this faux modesty. Oh no, please stop, Niles, stop. No. He says, sometimes you just have to have the grace to let people talk and say,
I've never seen that.
It makes me a little uncomfortable.
Scotty.
What's that?
I've never seen that in you. As a matter of fact, I think, you know, to kind of connect both JP and Niles' comment there, I think you're the most liberal conservative I've met in a long time.
Very well could be.
You know, Niall, I wanted to pose something else to you here, just again, thought exercise. You know, clearly you're a deep thinker, and you're a very intelligent guy. Sometimes
this is true.
It's not that we aren't something. Sometimes it's we haven't learned, or we haven't taught ourselves to be something.
Yeah.
It's like a muscle. If you don't use that muscle, if you don't work that limb, it atrophies, or it doesn't develop at all. And so maybe it's not so much you're not that. Maybe it's you just need to, you know, pick up the 5-pound hand weight and then move up to the 10-pound.
It's not even a need, JP. It's like that old saying, you know, about love. You know, it's like love and respect. It's like we can like and respect people for their intelligence and their kindness, so on and so forth. But we love them for their flaws.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it comes down to basic morals. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, you respect.
I tend to hear stuff like that gets said about me, and I say, oh, but you don't know the dark side. You know, there are times where, you know, we all have stuff. We can be a good person and try to be a good person, emulate being a good person, a good parent, there are days where I talk about my kids on the show and the things I do. And there are days I have bombastic exchanges with my children, and I sit in the quiet later and I go, God, I really fucked up there. And I am not. And sometimes when I talk about certain things, I wait for the bolt of lightning to hit me, you know? It's like, oh, that's not what you are. That's not what you do. Did you tell somebody about that? You know, maybe that's the guilt factor.
Which is interesting because there's obviously a guilt factor there.
There is.
And it could be argued, in your case, Scotty, that you're trying to make up for something, or to try and be a better person because of some earlier experience in your life, or it could be just who you are and how you express yourself. Only you could answer that, but it does. It does bring many interesting things into play. I thought tonight's show was kind of fascinating because you were talking about poetry and rhyme, and how we tend to associate poetry and rhyme with feeling better about ourselves, or at least or at least trying to make sense of ourselves in shorter bursts. That's why I like lyrics and music. Robert will agree with this. That's why I'm a big fan of music. He knows I'm a big fan of music, because especially there's nothing like a good lyric, There's
Right.
It's like, wow, and if it's written well, it can blow your socks off, and if it's written badly, you can go, okay, whatever. He's not a great lyricist. So that's why I said the thing about in the 19th century and the early 20th century, there was a big emphasis on poetry, and some of it was a bit foppish and a bit over the top.
Sure.
And not very realistic. But good lyrics, are like good anything. It's like good pasta, It's like you'll appreciate it. You'll know it when you hear it, that's why it's like honesty. It's like I heard a song from a band, an American band, Molly Baron, the other day, and he said something about looking up at the sky above from the bottom of the hole I dug. It's a very simple couple of lines, but doesn't that speak volumes?
It does.
So anyway. Thanks, JP. I'm not sure whether I said anything that made sense to you.
Well, I'll throw in my additional observation.
I just wanted you to think about some things. That's really more than anything, because I like I said, you're a deep thinking individual. You're an intelligent individual, and there was some self-criticalness there when you were talking about Scotty, and you mentioned, I don't have that. I'm not that. And it's like, well, we all have the capacity for it. Sometimes we just
but it
have to train it.
It doesn't mean that we're all equal, because there's things that I admire about Scotty that I don't have myself. There's things that I might admire about you, JP, or Robert, or Josh. I could say I don't have that aspect of myself. Otherwise, we'd all be wandering around agreeing with each other all the time, and saying, "Oh, you're
now, are
great."
those things that we
You're
learn?
great too, Yeah.
Do you think those are things that we just learn? And of course, we all learn things because of our environment, things we grew up with, the things we have experienced, and we learn to do things a certain way, or talk a certain way, or act a certain way, or how much is driven by the kind of personality we have, as opposed to just learning things, or is the learning things that affects us within the wheelhouse of our personality?
I think a certain amount of self-deprecation is valuable. Otherwise, we just lose track, especially in this day and age. We lose track of ourselves and our ego, because we are egocentric beings. So we have to take a step back and go, well, you know what this guy is making sense to me. I don't have what he has, but that doesn't make me a worse person than he is. I guess it's another form of humility, for want of a better word, even though I'm not a particularly humble person. I tend to react rather than step back and think about things and go, maybe that person has a point. I tend to go straight in there. But
that's a behavior that can be modified, and you can learn to be a less reactive person and learn to take a step back. There's a lot of stuff in there that there's a lot of stuff in there in the bigger picture of that is certainly nature, but there's a lot of stuff that very much is the nurture or the environment aspect of it, and things can be taught. You can be taught to think. You can teach yourself how to be a more objective thinker. You can teach yourself how to be more able to think empathetically or sympathetically with things. A lot of times it comes down to just trying and then continuing it.
I don't know if y'all have listened to Professor there, his Informatica, but
Every now and then.
We have the professor's plant. I see. No, I'm kidding.
And did you know you can buy his book at?
Yes. Well, no, just
no. Go ahead, Josh. We're just
forgive my humor.
Yeah, I'm sorry that the threesome you guys were having earlier didn't get to go to the room, but I'd like to hear what Josh has got.
Yeah. Me too. We were just making fun of Professor while you were talking. Sorry.
I know. We all hear that.
But it opened my eyes to a lot of things. So, I mean, what y'all was just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
he has a way of doing that. That's something I like about the professor. Is I like to listen to him.
Robert is a very, very articulate man.
Yes.
You know? Articulation. He forms his vowels very well, and that is extremely important.
Well, and he's got a voice for it. Let's not forget that one.
And he has that radio voice as well.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So he's got everything going for him. You know.
Jeremy Hansen just hit the nail on the head. I was going to say something like this. He says, "Yes, Informatica is very good. However, I have to listen twice to absorb it." I was going to say, Professor Bauer, I love listening to him. It's hard having a conversation with him, though. I've got to. Okay, Prof. Let's go back about 4 minutes ago. You said this, and then 8 minutes ago you said that. Let's reconcile those two things before we move on from there. And I have to cut him off to get there because he's on a roll.
I agree.
And that's good. All your information is great.
It's great information, but it tends to be.
It's it all.
And then,
hang on.
What did you just say? You know?
It's a little bit being on the end of an MG42 on the receiving end.
There you go.
800 rounds a minute.
Yeah. Professor Bauer is you have
guilty as charged.
Amazing information, but it's like it's all strung together. You go now. This thing that I started to answer your question on that leads me to think about this, but then you have to go all the way back here to get this first. And understand this so we can build the foundation to understanding why we should even question the first thing that is the first question that came up for the thing I was talking about.
Yeah.
It was
and
the wrong
then,
and you're like, what?
Then you go down that hole that
Yes.
you start talking about. So it's like, what the hell?
I am guilty as charged and flattered as hell.
And I love it. I love your presentation, but
If
that's
only I could
sometimes if
accept
you notice
compliments as well as you do, Prof.
I stop what you're saying sometimes because I want to go, okay, I want everybody to get that point. Let's hammer that home. And
well, the thing is, and I appreciate all of your indulgence, all the patience that you guys show when
hell yeah,
the button is pushed. But unfortunately for me, and you guys are just, target practice.
Thanks very much.
It rolls through my mind in that shotgun fashion because they, as you said, Niall, I try to be I'm an extremely verbose person.
Yes.
I love words like Scotty. I mean, Scotty and we got the same gene going on there. The path that I'm on with this Informatica and doing this artificial intelligence, this next wave of technology, the future as it unfolds with all these incredible things. I mean, it's a target rich environment of shit that is individual yet collective. So when I go down, and I'm not trying to justify it, I'm not giving an excuse.
No.
When I take all these different paths around trying to get back to the original rabbit hole, it's all connected. That's why I call it the nexus. But it's only connected in my mind. So you guys grace me the opportunity to let it out, and then and then I sit back and go, how'd that go?
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is an introduction to how a lot of us ADHDers think, because everything connects to everything all at once.
Everything
is right. Josh, you were going to say something?
It all depends on how wide the arc is, you know.
He just spreads the seeds.
Yes. You are a seed spreader, Professor.
So we've heard.
Oh, here you go. Here's the title of your next book. Oh, I missed it. There it is. String Theory, a redefinition by Professor Bauer.
Or maybe it should be Strung Theory.
Strung Theory.
Oh, there you go.
or
hanging by the ledge.
Or it could be Hung Theory.
Oh,
well, yeah. You know, and there was a comment earlier made about, you know, as you progress, you grow more, you start getting more information, right? And essentially your data set that you use to navigate reality, because that's how we function and that's how simple it is. All of this, it's a bunch of confused crap that people have put together about who we are. Who do we think we are? Who do other people think we are? And all of that is a construct mostly of the nurture, in my opinion, right now, because everybody's inundated with it. But the nature is the actual essence of the self, of who you are as an individual. So, JP, when you were going on earlier about the whole,
he said I go on,
and you know, you got to admit, you did get your time tonight.
I feel like this is not going to be an equitable distribution of time.
Yes. You're feeling that, huh?
Well, it depends on how many times you get interrupted. But my point is that all of what you guys were talking about, in my opinion, is the thing that people don't do enough of, that is the most critical and important thing that they can do for themselves. And that's self-examination.
Mm-hmm.
A self-examined life is the one worth living. It's the one where the exploration, discovery, all of the incredible experiences, the understandings you get from those, the knowledge that comes after that, and then the wisdom after you've done a shitload of them. That, if you're not self-examining yourself, why do you think the way you do? Why do you believe what you do? Why do you follow what you do? What colors do you like? What sounds do you like? And all of the opposites of those things and all the other things that go into the experience we have as our frequency stamp having this physical experience.
Yes.
Because that and I'm just going to interject this because it is tied, but this whole AI thing, I've been going in and poking on physicists and technologists on the topics of quantum fields and artificial intelligence and general intelligence and all this shit. And there's just really simple fundamental things that nobody's talking about. They've gotten it all. They're all up in the clouds here in this cacophonous chaos and conversation of crap. It's just a big mess. And they're not looking at what the hell they're based on. And all of it is missing the fundamentals of nature, the way things are, the way things work. And it starts with, how do we work? How do our minds work? How do we think about who we are? What are the filters that we use to help figure out who the fuck we are?
And like you said, artificial. It's artificial.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Robert, you sound like a big fan of Terence McKenna. Would I be right?
Oh, I very much enjoyed McKenna and the stuff he did with Sheldrake and Abraham back in the 90s. If you haven't seen the trialogues,
Sheldrake was a pothead.
Oh,
but he was good.
Sheldrake, Terence McKenna, and Ralph Abraham.
What was the second one? Trialogues.
It's the Trialogues is the series that they did, and they just sit down and have these conversations. And Ralph Abraham's a mathematician, a physicist. McKenna is a plant dude. Sheldrake is a biologist, And
Yeah,
these sit down and talk about all the stuff that you can imagine that you would expect with Terence McKenna. Incredible.
And for some reason, it would all kind of meet in the middle and make some kind of distorted sense. And I love McKenna. God rest his soul. Or I shouldn't. He didn't believe in God, I presume. But I always harbour back to his late 80s interview he did on UFOs, which is a classic, with a guy called Mishlove, I think. Which is a fantastic interview about UFOs. He's a great philosopher, and but also a great believer in science. He wasn't just a weed head, which he was,
Which
big
he was,
weed head.
but he was not all.
But also he kind of combined science and materialism and the ego and nature. As you mentioned, Robert, nature and the planet and the linguistic system of the planet and the song of the seas and all this kind of stuff. It sounds very, very, very cheesy and cliche unless you're singing a folk song. But, it all made sense the way he put all these stuff together. He also believed in free love and, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, some of it is like, oh, yeah, whatever. But I always liked his way of kind of trying to combine science and what he used to refer to as the culture crisis. As far as I'm concerned, we've always had a culture crisis. I think as long as we've been alive, we've had a culture crisis. But in the 80s,
probably a fair statement,
and 90s,
we lost Josh.
No.
In the 80s
Josh,
and 90s,
Josh, thanks for coming in.
He had this big thing about the culture crisis, and he used to explain UFOs in terms of what Jung was trying to explain in 1953 in the book he wrote about things seen in the sky, that UFOs were a reflection of our fears about the future, but the shape of the craft represented our view of ourselves, our unformed and brilliant kind of view of ourselves and our fears, encapsulated into one. He's a big Jungian as well,
Yeah.
I like all that stuff. I mean, some of the stuff you talk about, Robert, is kind of over my head. I mean, some of it, especially the crypto stuff. I mean, forget it. I'm not talking crypto. It's just it's not my bag. Yeah, it's one advantage of being broke. You don't have to worry about those things,
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh well, the point that I wanted to make that I thought was the most important is that self-examination thing.
Yes, Jeremy Hansen brought that up a little earlier about self-examination.
And I think it was Twain that said, if you tell the truth, you don't have to worry about remembering anything.
Right.
No, that was Judge Judy.
Judge Judy.
Yeah, sure, that was Judge Judy.
Mark Twain also said. Mark Twain also said there's in the introduction to, I think it was his own autobiography. He says there is not a man alive, he says, who can write an honest autobiography, because there's always going to be something he holds back and doesn't want the rest of the world to know about his private life. And you know what, Mark Twain, I think he's very honest with that.
Was that you playing Mark Twain on that episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation?
That was me, yes.
False.
I knew you were a tricky head. I just knew it, JP.
Oh, me?
I just knew it.
Hell yeah.
And
hell
him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I've been working on Trekkie coffee bags for a company right now that licensed them. So,
nice.
Just finished one up today. So, Captain Kirk's Captain's Choice medium brew. So,
wouldn't it be? I was just thinking when you said that, the first thing came to my mind was Captain Crunch, and then you said brew, and then I said Captain Crunch coffee. Now that might be good.
There might be somebody out there who already does that, you know?
Right?
Probably is.
Hop on the Google box, man.
Dude, I'm sure it's out there. It would not be something I would drink. I'm going to tell you that right now.
I don't think I'd drink a cup of Captain Crunch if my life depended on it. It sounds like something
Drink a cup of Crunch.
It sounds like something you could give a child. Here, have your Captain Crunch drink.
Yeah, shut up and drink your Captain Crunch with caffeine.
Yeah.
That's like, to me, it's akin to crumble cookies, making a cinnamon sugar or the cinnamon and brown sugar Pop-Tart cookie. All of the flavors you could have chosen to make a cookie from the Pop-Tart repertoire, you chose that one.
You chose that one.
You know,
Why?
I felt really old the other day because I walked into a coffee, and I hate going into coffee shops because they're all surrounded by men and, you know, with beards like me, and
sure,
they look like 19th century cricket players, you know, with waistcoats, and they say, "What would you like?"
Oh, waistcoats,
Do you want to like it?
And fedoras.
You know, here we go.
And I'm like, "Can I have a coffee?" You know, it's impossible to ask for coffee, and they're like, well, "What flavor?" A coffee flavored flavor.
Coffee flavored. Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of intimidating because you can't walk into a coffee shop and this, honestly, I was terrified. I had to ask the person I was with, what do I ask for? You know, there's a fucking menu, you know, of flavors, and you know.
Well, you know, Niall, I
still don't know what a coffee flavored coffee is.
You know,
I think it's a latte.
Here's
latte has milk.
Here's an observation. I remember when I was, you know, growing up in the 70s and 80s, and you went to a bar, we had beer or vodka or tequila or bourbon or whiskey or something. And then in the 80s, there was this foo-foo drink fad that started. And you started getting all these mixed things with different colors and flavors and shit, especially if you went to the islands. And then in the 90s, they started getting even more crazy, and the things started getting lit on fire more often. And there was all this, you know, shots and beer and shit. And I'm going, no, what are you wasting both of those for? That's not a treat. That's not, you know, that's not, it can't be good.
I don't know. There have been a lot of mixed drinks throughout probably the centuries. If you get down to it, I mean,
I'm just trying
to. Manhattan is not a new thing.
That's very good and tasty. What is it? Oh, well, that's a honey mead mixed with a little wheat. Oh, nice. Cocktail.
Yeah, I'm talking about I'm trying to make the analogy to the coffee shops that Niall's talking about, because, you know, we didn't have the places where you got coffee when I was growing up was like Denny's or Winchell's Donuts.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You know, at the Monkey Ward.
Then there was the rise of the coffee shop
thing.
We weren't as sophisticated with coffee back then. Got it.
Right. So now, if I go to a bar,
cool.
or I go to get a coffee, whatever it is, I just ask for it straight. I don't want any foo-foo. I don't fruit.
Yep.
No, I don't fruit flag, and I don't pour crazy shit into either my beer or my scotch. And that's all I want, because all the rest of the stuff, some of it, I mean, is amazing. And it's like, you can't believe what you're drinking. And the next thing you know, you're shit-faced. Those are the ones you got to watch out for.
Yeah, but
so now I'm starting to see there might be a history, a backstory to why the professor does not like the foo-foo drinks, quote unquote.
Well, especially gold in it, as in Goldschlager. But so today, when if I go to a coffee shop, I just Starbucks or, you know, one of the outfits and the outlets, I just say, I just want a coffee.
There it is, Kalina.
Great coffee. And
I make my own espresso at home. So,
well, there's a guy that does radio.
Otherwise, they're going to try to sell me some crazy shit on the menu that costs 4 or 5 times what I want to pay, and has 4 or 5 more flavors in it than I want to drink.
The thing is, Robert, Yeah, I tried that. I just want a coffee, and they'd say, "What kind of coffee?" I just want a coffee. I just want a cup of coffee. And
Cup of
it's very
coffee.
frustrating. But I want to go back to a point that
Would
you
you
said
like a
earlier on.
grande or
Yeah,
a
yeah.
supremo?
Or super
Venti.
latte,
Vente. I was trying to stay Spanish.
multi mucho,
Multi-mucho.
a multi mucho with nuts, and
Yeah.
honeycomb fragrance over, a cream topping, whatever the fuck,
Double Dutch
you know.
chocolate with
Yeah,
sprinkles.
exactly.
Now they've got names like, do you want the ball kicker, or a ball swinger, or the ass kicker? And you go, I don't even know how that doesn't even sound like you should put that name on a drink. If it's a drink, it can't be good for either one of them.
No.
Well, imagine I went in to buy a donut to what used to be the donut shop. And much to my chagrin, after I placed my order, found out it was a brothel because I ordered the double Dutch chocolate with sprinkles. But anyway, by the way, I threw up the art. There's the Star Trek coffee bag, the first one. It's going to press. And Pop Culture Coffee. I developed a whole cooler logo than that, but that's what they wanted, something simple. So there you are. There's Captain Kirk and all the junk. I had to design all this junk for the bag, and that's the bag and its layout. It gets printed and folded and glued together. Since I was talking about it, there it is.
Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you.
Very
Oh,
nice.
very nice. Very nice.
So, and there was a guy up here that had a local radio show, talk radio. But that's not where he started. He got his start with the Minneapolis Star Tribune newspaper 40 years ago or more. Joe Souchere, if you've ever heard of him. And he coined this thing when he started doing his radio show called Garage Logic. He said, I liken everything to working out in the garage. Life is like a garage. There's garage logic. And he did political commentary, of course, and all that, and commentary on many other things. But he said, so I went to the coffee shop, much like Niall. To the coffee shop. He says, yeah, I need a cup of coffee. Well, like Niall experienced, well, what do you want? What kind of coffee? And they started going through the retina. They pointed the menu board. Those are all the things you can have. He says, I just want a lousy cup of coffee. And so that's what he referred to it as a lousy cup of coffee. I just want a lousy cup of coffee.
And there is maybe it's a cliche. Robert alluded to this earlier on. But do you remember in all the Hollywood movies and stuff, and you walk into the diner in any small town in the States or in the city or whatever, and you sit at the counter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the girl says, you want a cup of coffee? Yeah, I want a cup of coffee. And, it's almost, they come down with the black, jar, whatever.
Oh, those they had porcelain mugs.
Yeah.
Porcelain. Remember those thick porcelain mugs?
Yeah.
Yep.
No, there was nobody asking. Listen, can I have cream with that? Can I have sugar with that? It was like, can I have a cup of coffee? And that was in all the Hollywood movies. And it was America was the penultimate example of cup of coffee is a cup of coffee. It's like you walk into a diner, you sit at the front of the diner, you sit at the bar, for want of a better word, and you ask for a cup of coffee, and you get a cup of coffee. So that used to be, maybe it was never like that in the States. Maybe that's a total cliche.
No. That's exactly. In fact, have you seen Dirty Harry? When he walks into the restaurant, and she just gives him the cup of coffee and then keeps pouring the sugar in, pouring the sugar in, and she's like, looking around. But that is not cliche. That's how I grew up.
Going to sugar in your coffee?
Yeah, I did actually. I did. Well, at first I did cream, and then I had to add sugar. But then I discovered honey and went, oh.
I use honey. If I want to sweeten my coffee, I use honey. I've gotten more over 40 years used to drinking coffee black, but I don't drink it black. I usually put a little tiny bit of vanilla creamer in it. Yeah. Boom. And I put that in. Or I put in whole milk and a little tiny bit of sugar or sweetener.
Like
I like a
American-
light roast for the caffeine jolt because light roast coffees have more caffeine.
More caffeine.
There's a science to it, and heavy cream because a little bit goes a long way with it.
Yes.
Actually, you look just like a character, JP, from a movie I want to mention, Angel Heart. There's with Mickey Rourke and Robert.
Oh,
De Niro. Yeah, Alan Parker film, and they were all dressed like you with the hat and the waistcoats and stuff. But there's one famous scene where Mickey Rourke is sitting in the diner and he's just one cup after another of black coffee and cigarettes, black coffee and cigarettes.
Oh,
and
that
the
was
girl
the
would
shit,
just top
man.
them
I
up,
used
top
to
them
love
up,
getting
top them
up
up,
and
top them up. And
coffee
there was
and
no,
cigarettes.
there was no menu about coffee. It was just black coffee. It was the black coffee, and coffee was coffee. When men were men.
I tell you what,
back in the day,
Here's when I actually started paying more attention to my coffee. And then I started paying even more attention when I dated a gal who opened a coffee shop.
Of necessity.
Right. Yeah.
Osmosis.
I started, yeah, exactly. I started paying a lot more attention to my coffee and figuring out what I liked and what I enjoyed.
Well,
after
you kind of
the
had
third
to.
or fourth time
You
where
kind of had to.
well, it's after the third or fourth time when we weren't able to get coffee at the PX tent for the motor pool, and we had to stretch what we had. So it was dumping new grounds on top of old grounds that had been in there for like 3 days already because the wrenches needed to keep turning and we needed to be coherent.
Yes.
And it was about then where I started saying, this sucks. There's got to be more.
Well, it's like when you run out of coffee filters and you go, I got to rinse the coffee filter out, or try making it with paper towel.
Paper towel.
Or I'm out of coffee. Damn it, I forgot to go get coffee yesterday. And so you look at yesterday's grounds and you go, I could pour some hot water through that and it would still have flavor. I make it bold anyway. I like rocket fuel.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It depends on the coffee, what kind of beans. I get there's a company I can't think
Death Wish.
Death Wish coffee is good.
They're over at Sam's Club, and they've got
finished a bag of that.
They got the 4-pound bags of beans, and there's different roasts, and then you just grind it right there. So
wow, you have that at one of your Sam's Clubs? I wish we had that at my Sam's Club.
Yeah, it's awesome, and the coffee's great.
That, Randall.
If I have Folgers or some other stuff, I can always tell the difference in the coffee.
Yes.
But the point I wanted to make is that if the coffee's good, and I know how to do this, I are one, and I have done it. I do. I will run 2 pots through 1 4-cup filter of coffee, because I know that that first pass did not get all those coffee out of those.
Not get all the goodness.
Did not. And
when you put 6 pounds of grounds in the
well, this morning I did something I haven't done in a while. I made myself some French press this morning.
Ooh, yeah. There we go.
Right. You start with the bean.
Niles over there just like, man, these dudes in this what are you guys even?
You grind your bean coarse and you throw it in the bottom of the carafe.
You got to let it bloom. You got to let it bloom in there before you pour the rest of the water in.
You let it steep for 4 minutes minimum. And then you've got some nice bold coffee. I had some great coffee this morning.
And you can't you almost can't beat French press for mouthfeel. Yeah. Just the way it's hard to say texture of a fluid, but there's a way that it feels different.
Like the texture of.
Yeah.
So
by the way, JP.
Yeah.
What the hell are you doing?
Guess what he's doing there. And he's dressed for it.
A hat.
I'm making a hat. I'm currently sewing on a grow grain brim edge binding, and I'm doing it by hand.
You're a hat maker.
Aspiring, fledgling.
Okay, yeah. No,
part-time.
I was wondering, but I just saw the hand going up.
He made the one he's wearing.
I did make the one I'm wearing. Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was like some kind of issue that you had. It was like
Niall. Really, what's going on is he's going to snip this clip after the show is up on
Yeah.
YouTube, and it's going to be on his Tinder.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like it's like
Show the girls that he's handy with a needle. I mean,
yeah.
show me a woman that is not going to fall for that.
Yeah, we're talking about coffee and psychology and philosophy and lyrics and poetry and JP is going like this, every 2 seconds. I'm like, what does that mean?
Just make sure before you use
now I see that. Now I see what you're doing. Yeah.
If you're going to become a hattier ever full time, Jason.
Yeah.
If you're going to become a haberdasher,
Mm-hmm.
and a woman attaches herself to you
Mm-hmm.
because deep down, well, she likes you, but deep down, she also thinks this guy's going places. He's got something. I will send a word of caution. My wife.
Patience.
Oh, I love Scotty's cautionary tales. Please continue.
My wife. When we first met, I lived in that big house with the fireplaces. It was all the haunted house. It sat on about an acre of land in the city suburb, full of trees and all that. It was a big lot, great house. And we met and we started hanging out, and she would come over, and I worked for myself, and she's thinking, this guy has got his shit together. And she's thinking, no, she didn't marry me for my money. That's our joke now. People will ask her, well, why did you end up marrying Scotty? Well, I married him for his money. And they say, well, he doesn't have any money. She goes, oh, he was misinformed. So if you're going to pursue your own business, like I was doing, I was an illustrator, designer, writer. Well, the writing came in later, other than Tam. But I think she thought all those things equated to, this guy's got a fortune. He's all right. I like him. He's great in bed, and he's handsome, and he's modest.
What was that? What was that he was saying earlier about Mark Twain saying that no man can be truly factual?
No man can write an autobiography. So
I never heard such a load of shit in my life. I'm sorry. I have to call it when I hear it. That's.
I gotta call it. That's
we need to find a way to do this in person.
Yes, we do.
I'm just saying, because these would be great.
We've been saying this for years, but shit, man.
Well, I have thought of sponsoring a trip to Ireland to go see some things in Ireland. There's Barry Fitzgerald who lives up there. That we're going to do this back in 2015.
There's a few of us. Yeah.
And we lost some. What did we lose? One of the guys who was supposed to be doing all the footwork for us in Ireland just kind of fell apart, and we had to eventually just cancel the trip.
That sounds like an Irish person. Yeah, we usually fall apart.
Yes.
Whereabouts are you now?
I'm originally from Dublin, but I live in Galway on the west coast.
Okay.
Yeah, so
So one place I didn't get to
out there,
facing the Atlantic, the full expanse of the Atlantic.
Yeah,
and Galway is a fascinating space because there's a lot of strange people here, and I've been trying to keep sane for a long time now in this country, and I do like the Americans very much, even though I do slag them off as well at times, but especially for their politics and naivety. But that's another day's story. But I love the company of Americans because they genuinely seem to like Irish people, and
they do.
And
you guys are all right.
Vice versa, and we're like the Scots, we're kind of a slightly,
or as we say when we're drinking,
slightly drunken version of the Scandinavians, that's why we get on so well with the Swedes and the Norwegians. and the Danish, and and if you move past Scandinavia, we get on very well with the Finns, and that's why we all like heavy metal music. Well, at least I do, and that's why we have a very kind of darkly humorous outlook on life. At the best of times, and the rest of the times is just pure depression, and
my friend Harvey married Tracy McCall. I says she was a scary old doll, a voice out of hell and a temper to boot, arms like a navvy and a face like dried fruit. Well, I bumped into Harvey back home last year. Says I to him, "You want to go out for a beer?" Well, me sister's French cousin is over for tea. He says, something. He says, "I'll just go for the one." And of course, the one. Don't go for the one.
But that means that means you're out for the night.
You're out for the night.
It's like exactly what that means.
He says the one went down fast, the second did too. 3 or 4 more was a fine. How do you do?
I tell you,
his watch and shrieked out with fright. It's 20 past 8. I've been drinking all night.
Some of the best crack that I heard was in Clonakilty.
Yeah.
Yes.
At Antiakbiag, and I was there, 2011, early spring, late spring, somewhere in spring of 2011 after I got back from Afghanistan. Hired a car, drove the whole island, stayed at bed and breakfast. And if you've never been, bed and breakfast in Ireland are not bed and breakfast like here, where it's a boutique bed. No, fucker, it's a bed and you get breakfast.
Sometimes you get shredded wheat.
It's nothing fancy, It's you get a bedside lamp, you get a bed, and that's about it, And you have to be
perfect though.
You have to be up, before 9 in the morning or whatever it is.
Well, one of the things that's always fascinated me about the British Isles, right? The England.
Oh, be careful what you say now, because
England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, and
that's how Robert started the war.
All you donkeys over there. Okay, the one thing, and I've been to England. I've spent a lot of time there in the Birmingham and South, but never really got up to Ireland or over to Scotland. But I could not believe how culinarily disposed and suboptimal the food is over there.
In Ireland?
Food, no, in England.
Oh,
I didn't get to Ireland and to Scotland.
I'm not a big fan of English food.
Is the food in Ireland as bad as it is in England?
No.
Have you never had champ or Colcannon?
It depends. If you're in the major cities in England, curry houses are big. The Indian immigrants, and they can be good, but they can offer you slops as well. You get a lot of chip shops, a lot of cheap food, a lot of crap food, basically.
Haggis on a stick.
Whereas in Ireland, we're the English. The English, even though the British Britain is an island as well, much larger island than we are, they're not that fond of their fish, so their fishing industry is not as big as it is here. So we have a huge culinary tradition of fish food.
Yes,
and we combine it with lots of other cultures in curries and stuff like that, and you don't get that in England. It's like England is like it's a completely separate world. There's a comedian, Darragh O'Brien, who's very famous in England. He says the only thing about England is there's no connection at all. The only connection is an ocean, which is very cold, and the only other connection is it brought the English over to us. So we don't like the English. We don't get on together.
We don't get on. That's an understatement.
It's individually. I can like English people, but culturally, we're just like chalk and cheese, and we're just like a stone's throw across the way from each other.
Yeah, you can see.
We get on better with the Scots. I mean, the Scots have been fighting with the bloody You know, I always think of Britain as like Scotland, Wales, and England. And Wales is like the traumatized child in the center. You know, say you have 3 kids, and Wales is like in the center of the back seat, getting bullied by the other 2.
Yeah.
You know,
So Wales
the
is the
Welsh
middle
kind of go
child.
with whatever side works.
And the
Not
Scot-
don't if you're Welsh, don't take offense to that.
yeah, and the Scots
Sometimes
are
it's
like
the Scots,
going
sometimes
nuts
it's
like
the
the
English.
Irish, because the Irish are very emotional and very demonstrative, and we speak a lot, and we tell stories, and we do this, and we do that, and the Welsh are like, shh,
Just keep quiet.
keep quiet.
So now, do the Irish and the Scots? Do you guys understand each other?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now and again, it's always a blast when there's a friendly rugby game or something over here, you know, because the Scots all arrive in their kilts, and we just all get completely blasted. They just arrive in every town in Ireland, and the Scots just love us, you know, and we love the Scots because we speak the same kind of language in that emotionally we feel slightly angry and slightly traumatized and very happy to see each other, you know.
Oh, fuck yeah, then you get the gang and you're going to bang the gate and done.
And we both
fuck yeah.
and we both hate the English. You know?
Yeah, there you go.
It's it, you know, so we always
Remember
have a blast.
Robin Williams did a bit on that.
Yeah, but
Trying to understand Scottish people.
But Irish people always have the same relationship with Scandinavians as well, and a lot of people don't realize that. But we do have a very close relationship with the North, basically. You know.
Well, it
There's
makes
a lot of
sense.
Viking blood in y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So,
it's all that ancient honky stuff. I mean,
Ancient honky.
you talk about
I thought
the
honky
whole-
was what black people used to call white people.
yeah, honky's a slang for crackers.
You can't
What?
use that word unless you're one of us.
I never heard of that.
You don't understand.
I mean, if you think about all of those countries across Europe, into Eastern Europe, and even into Siberia and what's Russia,
Mhm.
that is the widest part of the world in the world. The Finns, the Swedes, the Dutch,
Goddamn
Benelux, England, Ireland, Scotland. Spain has got a little bit of a different flavor
I was
going
in
on.
Amsterdam once and I saw a dike. It was leaking on the street.
No, I have to say,
So I stuck
Robert,
my finger in the hole in the dike. And it kept going. It finally built up so much pressure it exploded. I shoved my whole damn fist up inside that dike. Didn't work. Anyway, go ahead.
you know, I have
And
to
that
say,
was when Scotty got canceled. That,
Robert,
Your Honor, is how the
when
fights
I
go.
say that the Irish have a very good relationship with the Scots and the Scandinavians and the Finnish.
Yeah.
Now, as you move, you know, we don't really like the French because they don't want to speak English and they're quite snobby.
Well, they're all
And yet the wild geese flew.
Yeah.
To
But the funny
France.
thing is, we don't like the Eastern Europeans, even though there's a lot of them here. We don't like them though. That doesn't mean you know, they're great workers, but we have nothing in common with them. They're
What would you say is
they're
the
very
largest-
cold people.
Yeah, what would you say is the largest ethnic group outside of Ireland? What are the Irish? Outside of Irish, what is it?
What do you call a group of Ireland people?
Yeah, what do you call them?
Well, at the moment, it's Ukrainians. Yeah.
Irelanders.
Yeah. You know, at the moment,
What do you have there, Niall?
well,
More
at the
than
moment,
Irish.
we have 100,000 Ukrainians, which we can't house because we were told by Europe that we have to have 100,000 Ukrainians, and we have a 5 million population, so 100,000 Ukrainians. So at the moment we have 100,000 Ukrainians. We have a huge population of Eastern Europeans. We have Polish, Russians, people from all over the Yugoslavian states and all that kind of stuff. We don't have a lot of English people come over here because they just don't. the kind of English people who wander over here are not really looked on as Irish people. We don't really like them very much. So English people don't come over here. Americans don't come and live over here. So the vast population of our Africans come over.
If I could keep my handguns, I would.
Yeah.
But you guys won't let me play with my guns.
Yeah.
I'm a very safe practitioner of firearms use.
We largely Eastern European. It would be the largest ethnic group outside of the Irish people themselves, you know, and that's for various political reasons, some of which I don't agree with, such as the Ukrainians. There's too many of them, and we can't house them, and it's a major drain on resources. And there's Irish people who don't have houses, who are homeless, but we're giving them to Ukrainians. But
that sounds familiar. We got something like that going on.
Yeah, on a much bigger scale, you guys. But you know, a lot of Polish, a massive amount of Polish, a lot of Russians. But I have to say that a lot of the Eastern Europeans that we have in this country tend to have a criminal background, at least a criminal mindset. You know, you would probably say this something similar about the Mexicans or something like that. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, a lot of
too much of everybody.
Too much of everyone.
Yeah, we've got a huge issue with unchecked influx of population. When you have, it's fascinating to look at all these different discourses going on about wars and countries and belief systems, and everybody's getting on each other about what's the central thing? A border. This is my land. This is your line. No, there's a border here, right? Ukraine is about the Russian border. The Gaza-Israel thing, it's about a border and a place that people have stepped out across the border. Doesn't matter who's on what side for what reason, but there's been a violation of border. We've got this open system going on down at the south end of our country here, that 76,000 last month, official records. It is a record for 1 month. There is no way that our broken systems have properly accounted for, processed, and vetted the people that have come in. They just been let in. We don't know who the fuck they are. We don't know where they came from.
At this stage, Robert, they're just walking across. You know?
It's exactly right. Yeah. And so we're all up in everybody else's business, helping them with their borders. We're not doing squat about ours. Yeah. And we have this massive influx of unknowns. There's a whole bunch of uncertainty that's been introduced into our systems, into our populations. And it's in my opinion, the way that it's been executed has been purely on purpose. This was an intentional thing to allow a whole bunch of unknown people to come rushing right in. And we don't know where they are. We don't know who they are. And we don't know why they are. So I really appreciate these other countries and other people having their local problems and our ability to support them in some way, shape, or form. But the fact that we're not doing that for our own borders is cognitive dissonance.
Well, it's cognitive dissonance, and it's also ridiculous because the drug situation in the States is completely crazy now. It's got to the stage where you can, I mean, fentanyl combined with heroin, combined with crack, combined with meth, combined with coke, put it in a pill, and sell it on the street.
And in my opinion, the fentanyl issue is that's a China-driven issue.
It is.
It is, yeah. But
yeah,
it's coming through Mexico because
it absolutely is.
Obviously, it can't be sent directly from China, so it's coming through Mexico.
Right. But I think it's one of those things that it's they play the long game. They play the long game, and they try to find ways to whittle away at stuff, backdoor things, find different ways in, to have influence, to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, that's a
the
compounded problem with fentanyl.
The best way to take down any organized system,
It's from within,
either politically, governmentally, socially, is from within.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the actual facts that are documented, certified government documents, and you see what the government, the agencies and institutions of government, from the legislative and the executive and the judicial, but then you got all these extracurricular institutions that are intelligence agencies, and there's 20 or 30 of them that have spawned themselves out of the original CIA that Truman put together back in 47. And when you look at the documents that they have produced, like MK Ultra, it was a fact. Operation Northwoods, that was a fact. The Brookfield or the Brookings Institute document, fact. The fact that the CIA has been involved in guiding the media for decades, and they have it in their own documents.
Yes,
it is.
And the sad
and
thing
you
about
look at it, and you go, okay, so why has this been allowed to continue?
And the strange thing is, Robert, is that the Americans have lost their standing in the world. America was the great empire, the great superpower.
Well, it still is. The problem
is it still is, but it's not viewed that way.
Well, our credibility has been shot because of the idiots that are running it right now, and the system that they use to administer the responsibilities that they've been given. But it's
also because of the border issue as well.
Well, the ideology is so screwed up. That's why we have this border problem that I just talked about. It's why we have the drug problem we have. It's why we have an education system that doesn't work. It's why we have all of these new letters that are added to this identity crisis and victimhood thing that's been crafted. We've been infiltrated with complete absurdity, and so much of it that it is everybody else around the world. I mean, I don't know if you've seen what's happened down in Argentina, but they just elected their version of Trump. And what did the guy do? He pulled a Musk. He went in there and
he did what? He pulled a what?
He pulled a Musk.
Oh, yes.
When Musk bought Twitter, he went in and whacked 80% of the resources. And 2 years later, they're turning a profit and doing better, got better numbers than they've ever had. Yeah. So this guy in Argentina, I think his name is Milei or Melia or something like that.
But yeah.
He went in and he's axing all these government institutions and departments.
Is this the fascist guy? He's basically a fascist.
He's not a fascist.
Oh, he's the opposite. He's the opposite.
No, I'm thinking of somebody else in South America.
We're not talking about Trump, who's a dictator, and Hitler, not a fascist. Okay. By the way, everybody that's singing that tune needs more cowbell.
Yeah, I mean, right.
It's just no. Be this absurd, repetitive noise that goes on. The is that when you get somebody who has responsibility over an infrastructure that isn't working, and they go in and they immediately make changes, and it works better, and especially if they remove a whole bunch of stuff and don't replace it, the redundancy and the corruption in that redundancy of all government institutions across the planet is deep and it's wide. And when you need somebody that's got enough cojones to get into a position of responsibility and authority to go in and say, I'm cutting this crap, period. You're out. No more funding. No more of your bullshit and your bureaucracy.
You raised a good point.
What's needed. And you're not getting it with what we have right now. Running this country. That's why is a bunch of puppets. There's a whole group of people behind this old stick figure that they prop up in front of a podium that's actually running everything. He's not doing squat. I mean, there's not anybody that can't look at or can look at him and say, "No, he's got his shit together." Nobody. You can be autistic and you wouldn't say that.
Okay, well that's a very good point. But I will just say, I know Scotty probably wants to finish up in a minute, But I would just say, from a European point of view, looking on, there are things about Trump that I can admire, in inverted commas. His his big balls approach. I'll take on the world, and the America first, and that it's propagating that American empirical kind of thing that you guys need.
Well,
But at
it's
the same, but at the same
spirit.
time, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things bad about Trump. First of all, he's immoral. Secondly, he's not a politician.
Actually, that's a good thing.
You see, now that's the problem. We don't need politicians. Politicians are the ones that have fucked
And
shit
I was
up.
going to say, thirdly, he's not a diplomat.
He doesn't have to be a diplomat. He's a businessman, and
He's
that's
a
another
businessman, which he
People
knows
don't
how
think
to
about.
negotiate deals. And
Yes.
this is the tack he took to being president.
Yes,
This is why he had a good relationship with Putin. He had a good relationship with
everybody.
Kim Il Jong, Little Rocket Man, he called him.
Yeah.
He had a good relationship
Kim.
with these guys that are rattling chains now because he knew how to, from a business angle, put
I
the
still think
stocks on.
morally he's very dodgy, though. Morally he's very.
I don't
Well-
think so. I think that's the propaganda about him.
How do you know? That's
Yeah,
honestly.
you don't know for sure.
You
What
know
you're told.
how he talks.
He
You know,
talks like a straight shooter.
No, he talks like somebody who's very fond of himself.
Well, if you're going to be in that position, if you're not fond of yourself, you don't need to be in that position.
That's right.
But
I
that-
think like you look at
That's
Biden.
Wow.
He has a
that's
fake
not
humility.
necessarily true.
Um,
I mean, you can actually. I mean, Trump cares about nobody except for Trump. And
I
he's a-
think
pretty
that
talking point.
see, I would say, Niall, and I don't mean this to insult you.
Mm.
When I hear Americans talk that way, I said you have swallowed the hook, line, and sinker of the left.
That's
That's
right.
exactly what they want you to.
Do you really
about
think he's
Trump.
going to get in again? Because
Absolutely.
I think he is.
well,
I have no
I do
opinion
agree.
one way or the other.
I think that Biden has been very weak, and,
He has been.
and also he's too old. So I can't see anybody else coming up. So I mean,
Well, Trump's only a few years younger than Biden.
But
Yeah,
he's
but
in
it's the
a
age
better
thing.
shape.
It's the,
Trump's still
it's the
mentally
confidence
there
thing.
and is cogent and
Yeah.
conscious and
but
Right.
he's not as frail as Biden is. So he's a bit more vibrant. But I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I think it's like
he's
the
got
old
so many
line
court
from
cases against him at this stage. It's a joke. I
you
mean,
know what's
it's
really
like-
interesting
That's
though
all
is
made up
there's
now.
most of
All made up.
those court cases have
All
all
made
been
up.
opened by the same guy who has actually been trying to push his own presidential run and doing it very quietly.
yes.
Yeah.
Which it's like
It's like the old line from the movie The Usual Suspects, which has become cliche. The devil's greatest lie was getting everybody to believe he didn't exist.
Yes.
Now, you take the converse of that with Trump. The left's greatest lie is getting everybody to believe Trump is some horrible, immoral, whatever that needs to be taken out.
look, man, if you want to take the 1980s, like anybody who was in big business was like, railing coke and doing a bunch of stuff. Like, come on.
Right, everybody.
Look
Yeah,
at the
I mean,
shoulder
I
pads
mean,
and the suits.
even the Kennedys, who the Irish worshipped.
Sure.
I mean, they were so
Right.
corrupt. I mean,
Yeah.
But we love them because they were Catholic Irish people.
Yeah, right, Irish Catholic.
But
And
I think
Trump, he's a
I
businessman.
don't have an
and that's-
argument with Trump per se, but I've kind of looked at him enough times and I've seen his actions, and I don't think he's as smart as he thinks he is. Number one,
smart enough to be a billionaire.
How do you quantify that? This guy's made his own money, and if you think about it, Niall, you go back and look before Trump decided to run. All the people that don't like him were his best buds.
Yeah.
He was in every party. He got a
Everybody
Walk of
loved
Fame.
Trump until
It's
he
like
ran for president.
he knows where the bodies are buried, and that pisses them off.
Yeah.
See, the colors have changed because
call it instinct. I just have an instinctual feeling that this is not a moral man. I have an instinctual
name one
feeling
that is.
Well, you know what I mean. You know,
I know I don't.
Okay, what I mean by he's immoral, right?
How?
He might be slightly sociopathic. Okay,
How?
he
I
might have.
disagree with that.
You know, he's certainly ill-advised.
How?
I think that
That doesn't mean somebody's a sociopath.
I think the
You're just ill-advised.
I definitely think that he did instigate the Capitol Hill riot.
Oh,
I don't think so.
There's
sure.
I
no
think he said something
There's
like
no
every other politician out there says. We've had every politician that stood against them. You can look into their history, and they've said very similar things. We've got to go out there and fight these guys, and we've got to take them down, and we've got to do this if we
I
want
think
our country back.
he's a misogynist as well. You know, sorry.
You know, I think once again, I'll use this example one last time. I liken Trump to Thomas Becket out of history. In that, Thomas Becket was a famous carouser of friend of Henry II. Henry II or the fourth? Henry II.
One of the Henrys.
And one of those Henrys. And famous drunk and womanizing, carousing. And when Henry came to the throne in his own right, he wanted to appoint Becket the Archbishop of Canterbury. Becket said, "No, do not ask me to do this." He says, "I am not a man of the cloth. I am not that." Henry said, "I'll have none of that. I need a political ally in that position. You are it. Your king commands it." So what does Becket do? He unwillingly enters the role, but then he takes on the form. He sells his goods. He gives away his fortune. He becomes the Archbishop of Canterbury. And not only does he defy the king in certain things, he stands against him.
Oh, yeah.
And Henry's
So
like,
he
I
had a
put you
Messiah
into
complex as
place
well. Yeah, I forgot about
to
that.
stand for me and be my political dude in the office. And so what does Henry II do? He has him assassinated on the steps of the Canterbury Cathedral.
Yeah.
And then he goes and makes a big deal out of doing his penance at the Canterbury and letting himself be whipped. You know, he flagellates. So one word difference there. And all is forgiven. But this is what I see in Trump. I said this 6 years ago. I said, Trump is the kind of guy that was a famous billionaire playboy on TV. Everybody loved him. You know, the Art of the Deal was his book. Oprah loved him. Everybody loved him, and blah 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 blah. And he was still. You look at tapes of him from 40 years ago. He was saying the same stuff he is now, but he wasn't in office.
He's incredibly consistent.
Yep.
Yes. And
But do you guys really believe that's what you want?
But here's what I think.
What, someone who's consistent?
What I've seen,
No.
he is consistent for 40
Donald
years,
Trump.
saying the same things.
Do
Now
you
I
really
see him
feel-
as the way I compare him to Becket is that he didn't give away his fortune, but he didn't take anything for what he's doing. And he is somebody who has, I think, turned into a guy that used to be a billionaire playboy to somebody who has now risen to the occasion. Does he still have his personality quirks? Sure. But he's risen to the occasion because he loves his country. And he wants his country to do better. And that's what he is after.
Maybe that's
and
what
as
you
somebody
need.
who
I don't
supported
know.
him, this is what I see in him. Because I don't buy the way the left and the press, which is primarily left, want people to think about him. And I don't buy it. And because they can't get the people to think that way about him, what are they doing? They're now trying to take away his fortune because he is not somebody who kowtowed. They couldn't take him down politically. And so what are they going to do? They're going to try to take him down one by one. They're trying to chisel away at his fortune so they can make him destitute or put him in jail.
I wish you guys the best of luck. I personally, I see a man who's kind of morally destitute. I think he's a misogynist. I think he's arrogant, ignorant. I don't think he's I don't think he's read a book in his life. I don't think he's a very.
But see, where do you pick up those notions?
Yeah, where do you get the notions from?
Yeah, where are you getting this opinion, this insight?
How do you? What
Because
are you
it sounds like
that's a good
points.
from talking to other people. From talking to other people.
Okay, it sounds like the people that you're talking to all have the same list.
Right.
The things.
Remember what I said earlier about the groups you surround yourself in? We end up in our echo
they're all
chambers.
saying the same things that are the talking.
There's always a certain amount
left.
of truth, that will kind of, rise to the surface. When you talk to enough people, they'll say the same things over and over again. And
well, just because the same thing is said over and over and again does not make it true.
True. Those are other people's opinions.
So here's
your example? Here's
what
an
is your
example,
truth?
Kyle.
What
You
is
go
your
into
truth?
LA right now, you go downtown LA, and you will hear a bunch of silent support, people who don't want to say, no, I'd really rather go with Trump. You see a lot more of that than you used to, but for the most part, you're going to hear a bunch of liberal drivel. You're going to hear how the left and the ideologies and all of this stuff, that's what you're going to hear. Now, you go to Dallas, it's going to be exactly the opposite. You're going to hear people talking about, we want Trump because, number one, there aren't any other options. Number two, we know what this guy's already been proven. Number three, he's the most vetted person on the planet. Yes. Nobody has looked into more of somebody's life up their ass, down their throats, in their ears. Nobody has had the kind of penetration that Trump has in the history of any probes at all. And they still haven't found anything. There's everything that you're hearing right now in these legal systems is a bunch of hearsay. It's a bunch of intent by words.
Even Jack Smith, who is leading the major Washington, D.C. trial against Trump right now, hasn't even charged him with insurrection. You know why?
Because he can't.
It's not there. There's no proof of it. And so, but everybody says he's being tried for insurrection.
We're not going to look at that. But Niall, here's a perfect example of what
I just don't like the guy.
A minute ago.
And that's okay.
That's fine.
They're trying to take all of his assets. Here's the thing that you got to read the court documents. There was no trial, number one. The judge made a summary decision.
That's in the other trial going on.
Yeah, I'm talking about the property guilt, the property trial. There was no trial by his
guilty.
Yeah. There was no trial by a jury of his peers. There was no defense presented. The judge made an immediate determination of guilt because of looking at the evidence himself,
and moved right to the financial.
Yeah, and then they brought in. Everybody was asking, well, you're saying that he screwed the banks on overvaluation of his assets.
No, the banks screwed themselves on that because they lent him the money.
The banks came in and said
the banks
didn't do any damage. We made money off of it.
And they do it with him again.
And they do it with him again.
So who's the victim?
I have a quick question for Niall, real quick. Because you said the whole thing with you don't like the guy. Look, I'm not terribly fond of the guy either. I did not vote for him either time. I voted Libertarian. All right. But do you believe, whether you like a person or not, no matter what your personal feelings are about a person, are they entitled to full and complete due process?
Yes, but
okay, no. You can't but that. Either you believe in due process and due process should be carried out to the fullest extent in the most legally correct, non-corrupt manner, or you don't. That you can't but on that. There's not a wishy-washy on that.
All right, well then, yes, I suppose.
Okay, so
but I think that Trump is. I think, forget about Trump for a second. I think America at the moment is seriously going through a kind of a schizophrenic breakdown at the moment because you're losing empire, right? You're losing major points of empire. Nobody respects America anymore like they used to. Even though you might have the best military in the world or whatever it is,
They
But guess
respected us
what?
a hell of a lot more under Trump's
Yeah.
presidency than they
No,
do
no,
now.
but listen, but and we say, this is the way the European Union look at it. It's like, this guy Trump he's a misogynist. He's he's not even a politician. He's not even a diplomat. Hell, he can't even string a sentence together. He can't speak normally to you. He's always cracking jokes. He has that stupid hairstyle. It's like everything screams at you of Mussolini and fascist Italy.
I
back
don't
in the
catch
day,
Mussolini at all off of Trump.
with the stupid hat and
I'm just going to say,
Where do you
Now-
get Mussolini?
I'm
Nah,
just going to say you need to
because he's bombastic at times.
this
You
is
need
how
to
the Europeans feel. It's not just
No,
me.
no,
This is how the
you need to
Europeans feel.
expand your circle, Niall,
Yeah.
because that like I said earlier, everything that you just said are the top talking points of his political adversaries, and all of them can be disproven.
Yeah. Well,
And-
another
and-
great thing is that the whole everybody going back to the January 6th thing, right? And everybody crying 14th Amendment. Okay. And Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, blah, blah, blah. That's where it goes into insurrection, sedition, all that stuff, right? What everybody loves to do is scream Section 3, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, but nobody likes to look at Section 5 of the 14th Amendment, which says Congress shall have the right, basically, to enforce everything within this. There has been zero legislative anything from Congress to make Trump.
That's because what they're also missing is that the 14th Amendment's context was post-Civil War.
Right.
It was
There's that too.
Personalities and politicians and
Which is the
military
debate I've been
generals
having with Christopher
that
Titus, by the way, on
fought
his
for the South. So they're just saying.
Let me put it another
Yeah.
way, because I know I don't understand the American system, but when push comes to shove, is Trump a man you would trust?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean,
Fill in the blank.
100% trust.
Niall, there's no one, if you think that you can trust any politician in any country from any
But
party,
he's not a
100%.
politician.
No, okay, anybody who's running for political office. There's a whole bunch of people. In fact, the guy that just won Argentina has never been in politics.
Never. He's a economist, right?
He's an economist. I mean, you've got countries. New Zealand fell. Australia changed theirs. The people that have come in have not been career politicians, and that's exactly what's needed. If you think you got to have a politician, then you're already at the wrong starting point. You need somebody who's outside the system, somebody who has a skill set, a talent stack, a capability, a track record of being able to establish goals and achieve them. And that's like Trump. Everything, most of what you have said about Trump are all personal dislikes.
We had said very often in his first term,
you haven't said
people would
anything
complain about him, and they'd say, well, I'd say there's a big difference here. Trump did not run to be the feel-good president. I'm going to make you feel good.
No.
Trump ran to be what we called the GSD president, the get shit done.
Oh,
president.
I thought you were going to say German Shepherd dog. So.
No. You could apply that. And that's what he did.
But would you say that Trump represents a resurgence of the American empire? Because this is something I hear again.
You keep
Niall,
you keep using the word empire.
We
don't have an empire. The British had an empire. The French had an empire. The Portuguese had an empire.
Or we don't have a world power, superpower.
We are, regardless of how dented we are. Why are there record numbers of people coming into our country, aside from the crime? And
on top of that, if America went under, what do you think would happen in the world? America still is a superpower. There's just a perception that our leadership is taking us down.
Yes.
America's as much a superpower as it ever was.
Well, it is true.
We just got faulty leaders in right now.
Yeah, I think that is true. Yeah, faulty leaders in it right now. I think
So you're
Biden
talking
is-
about perception, world perception.
Yeah, and I
The
think
world
that's-
perception was much brighter under Trump than it is about America than it is now.
Yes, but that doesn't guarantee that it'll be the same the second time around.
Doesn't guarantee that
I
it won't
think
be.
it will be because they're going.
Chances are even better. Everybody knows.
How did people feel about Sinn Féin in Ireland going from being the IRA to a legitimate political organization?
Well, actually, they're one of the biggest parties in the country right now. So,
they are right now. But what I'm talking about is that there's that there's that transitory period, right?
Yeah.
From being a revolutionary or a terrorist organization, depending on what perspective you're looking at it from, right? Yeah. To being a legitimate political thing.
And it took decades and decades.
Right. There's always things in there that you have to figure out. Oh, well, are we going to let Sinn Féin try to run for whatever for a second, third year, whatever this is? Do we want to do that? Can we trust them? How's it going to turn out? I mean, how do I know I'm not going to walk outside and I'm going to have a car bomb go off?
Yeah. That's very true. I mean,
it's like that with anything.
Yeah, and Jeremy just nailed it, and I feel the same way. I don't give two shits what any other country thinks of us. They want to cast their opinions and aspersions and everything else. Come on over. We already got more people that are.
We'll say we just don't have to give you money anymore.
But we'll show you what the American spirit is.
I hope you don't feel that I was attacking you guys.
Not at all. Not at all. We're just having a conversation.
We're just clarifying that. We don't care.
If I get loud, it's because I'm half deaf.
And it's like,
and Niall,
what I would like to see is there no alternative to Trump? I mean, is there none?
All right, fine. I'll do it. I'll run. I'll run.
Yeah, I'll run.
I will be assassinated in my first term. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
I will sacrifice myself on the altar of freedom and the Constitution. There you go. Now I need you to fund me. If you can just fund my campaign now.
Jeremy. This little turd on your question.
Vivek Ramaswamy. People don't like everything about him either, but he's very strong.
He's very strong. He's incredibly intelligent.
I like him.
Very successful and non-political.
He's such a new guy, though. I kind of want to see how he is in general before he would go into office. I don't have enough familiarity with him, but he says a lot of good stuff.
Well, Niall, just to put a little turd on the topping there of your thing about do we really
professor and turds, man,
the right guy, and do we really want somebody like Trump? And is he the only option for us? I'll add this: he's the only option for the rest of the world.
He really is.
Wow. Not just United States, not just us. He is the option that is needed to start kicking the additional asses out of the cans of crap that are scattered all over the planet.
He needs to kick some ass, and
he's the only guy that can do it, and he's going to do it. You're not going to like it when he does it. People are going to get upset that he's out there saying it. But when he gets done with it, people are going to go, well, maybe it wasn't so bad. So there you go. There's a turn on the top of your cake.
It's better than sniffing little girls on national TV.
It's not even sure whether he can run for the presidency.
Oh, he can run. There's nothing preventing him from running.
He has no convictions of all the states saying the things about we're not letting him be on the ballot, right? Well, most of them are talking about the primaries, and in those states, the Republican primary convention, those things like that, they can be like, okay, well, he's still going to be on the ballot. He just can't be on our ballot for our election. They can still put it up. There's ways around it.
Crap that is falling apart on a daily basis. Today, Michigan Supreme Court said he's got to stay on the ballot. All the rest of them are going to fall in line, especially after the Supreme Court smacks them all back into line.
And the Colorado Supreme Court that ruled that he couldn't be on the ballot, they're doing that. Every one of them are leftist
Democrats.
Activist judges.
Yes.
Which would be against Trump in the first place.
So
they know going in that
they're not an impartial party.
The United States Supreme Court. Notice it's the left that is pushing democracy, and Trump is bad for democracy. Yeah. Trump is going to destroy democracy. What are they doing when they're telling the people they can't vote for who they want to? they're destroying
Was
democracy.
it Colorado or was it someplace up in like the New England area that said that Trump's can't be on the ballot and you can't have him as a write-in?
No,
yeah,
that was
Colorado.
how do you enforce
you can't
that
even
one?
write him in.
That was RFK Jr. for the Dems.
It's like how do you even
How do you do that?
That's how
Remember-
you prevent the
do-
people
do-
of the United States in a free
Against
election
the law.
from writing in whomever
remember
they
earlier
want to
on,
have, because you can
Robert-
write Mickey Mouse in if you want to. a wasted
Robert,
vote,
you were
but-
asking me what I dislike about Trump. And
What I was
I
saying,
named a
my
couple things.
observation is that everything you've said so far are
Mm.
personality traits.
Yes, but just let me finish. And there's one more. I don't like his smugness. And
Personality trait.
If
That's
there
a
is
personality thing.
well,
yeah.
he's the leader of of a country, a very powerful country. You can't be smug. He always walks around like
Mine
he
too,
owns-
Jeremy.
Like he owns the fucking trees, around him.
Well, here's the thing. Would you
and the thing
rather
is-
have a leader that is of
What does that
supposedly
remind
the
you
most
of? What does that
powerful
remind
country
you
in the
of?
world? Is that leader supposed to be, should that leader be a little, hey, fuck y'all because I know what I'm doing?
I want
That's what
somebody
I
with
like
attitude.
about Trump.
No,
Yeah.
it's an attitude. It's an attitude problem.
Yeah.
He would be. I mean,
Or it's an attitude asset.
Psychology. It works all from
Very
the top
smart.
down. It works. In every aspect of life. If you see somebody who looks like a smug bastard walking across the road, you say that's a smug bastard, and chances are it's going to be a smug bastard. You might
No,
like him.
you're not realizing the importance of what you're discounting. Steve Jobs, Jack Welch, Elon Musk. Every one of these guys have very similar personality and character traits. They're strong-headed, they're bull-willed, they'll say whatever the fuck they want, and they'll do whatever they want their way, because guess what? They're successful when they do that. Do they rub a whole bunch of people the wrong way?
Sure.
Absolutely. Most of the people that get rubbed the wrong way have an oversensitivity problem and should probably self-examine why they feel so emotionally triggered by somebody's personality. Because at the end of the day, the people
or by a song.
the people that get shit done have all the characteristics that you're talking about you don't like. So do we want somebody who can get something done? Yes. As Trump
Okay,
did.
here we go. Here's another example.
And did he do it the first 4 years? Yes. Do we want more of that? Even more so, because the
Even
guys
more so
that have been
now.
there last 4 years have not only screwed it up, they've created a huge mess that has to be cleaned up. It's going to take a businessman, not a bureaucrat, not a politician, somebody who understands processes and methods and can look at a balance sheet and understand ROI, because none of the people that are running things right now they don't know, they couldn't even spell ROI, let alone know what it means.
Don't you think, though, it's extremely unlikely he'd get reelected?
No,
Oh, no. His
And if he
chance-
do, if
I
he
think
does,
it's more likely now than the first
more
time.
likely every day.
don't you think it's more than likely if he does get re-elected that we'll be just like, oh my God, what a fix?
No.
It's just after everything
A bunch
he's
of
been accused
people
of.
who are on the left, who you are hanging out with, clearly are going to feel that way.
Sorry about that.
But there's a whole bunch of people on the other side that are going to be putting a whole bunch of positive energy into that movement's forward. It's the people on the left, and I really encourage you. I love you, Niall, but you're hanging out with people that are just, they're brain staining.
They don't know what they're talking about is
with
what it
the
comes
talking
down to.
points.
You've got to
They're
broaden.
Americans.
Reality.
They're Americans. I mean,
They don't know
that-
what they're
that
talking
doesn't-
about.
Yeah,
that
that
doesn't mean that-
I'm not talking to other Europeans about this. I'm talking to
Sure.
Americans, and this is
Oh,
what
yeah.
they're telling me. This is
Are
what
we
they're telling me.
divided? Yes. But
Yes.
the group of people that are complaining about Trump are about 30%. The people that are supporting Trump are 40 to 45%. And then the remaining 20% or so is a bunch of people, for the most part, they're kind of quiet. And all the polls and all the stuff it keeps pointing to, this Biden guy, he was supposed to be bring the civility and the
Oh,
normalization
yeah.
and all this, statesman bullshit. He brought none of that. He screwed everything up. And now the people that said, yeah, maybe Trump was a little rough, Yeah, I'm getting really upset about those mean tweets.
He spent how many days in his first day, in the first, year in office? How much time did he spend, and how much ink did he use to undo all of the
His
executive
goal
orders
was
that
his
Trump
goal
put into
was
place
to
that
undo
he
the
is
Trump
now walking back, and they're just reintroducing it under
Yes.
some sort of new Biden plan, because like problems with the border, like the professor alluded to earlier. Well, he didn't just allude to it. He's just straight up called it how he saw it. A lot of those things now they're sitting there basically walking their actions back and
repackaging them, and
repackaging it and rebranding it. So now it's like, oh, cool. What was a Mercury is now a Lincoln, like, look, man, a town car is a Grand Marquis is a oh God, what was the squad car?
Ford
Crown
LTD.
Vic.
Crown Vic.
They're all the same damn car, but they have different badging on them.
Just to end this, because I have to go now. But if I was to say, apart from the left people, as Robert was referring to, so-called left people, Americans I've been speaking to, there's also a huge number of American people I've been speaking to who say to me, you know what, no, we don't like him, but I think he's the best thing for our country at the moment.
Yeah.
Which to me is kind of like a slightly schizophrenic way of looking at it. It's like, we don't like, the president, but he's the best thing for us.
I can see that, but it's like Patton in his Third Army during World War II. The man could not run his mouth. He did all kinds of stupid things in terms of the public and things like that.
Yeah.
But you know what? We needed him there. We wouldn't have broken out of Bastogne and continued across the Ludendorff Bridge with the 291st Engineer Combat Battalion if it hadn't been for Patton and his audaciousness and his drive and his I don't give a fuck. I'm getting it done.
Pretty much.
Plenty of people didn't like that. Plenty of people in power didn't like that, but they understood this is the guy we need for the job at the time. And you see that throughout history. I mean, I think Scotty and Robert have both said about that you know what, there's been plenty of people throughout history that you may not like them, but they're the person that you need there.
They're the ones that you need in place.
Well, we'll see what transpires, but the world is watching,
Oh,
we don't
care. They are.
But we don't care. We got our own shit to clean up. Everybody else has got their own shit they should be looking at in their own backyards and not worrying so much about us, because we will do what needs to be done at the end of the day.
Oh, well, hopefully.
But these you guys over in Europe, you got a bunch of problems going on over there.
We've got
huge problems. So y'all.
So
go
now having said that, y'all.
Y'all
go and have a cup of coffee.
Coffee flavored coffee.
Coffee flavored.
Personally speaking, I think this has been a very engaging conversation.
Yeah,
I hope it didn't come across as an arrogant arsehole or anything like that.
No.
So it's always great to talk to you guys. And wow, how long have we been on, Scotty? About 3 hours at this thing?
Oh, too long.
Holy moly.
I should have been off an hour ago.
We'll see what happens. I'll
Here,
talk to you soon, all right?
Before you go, I've got a little thing I want to show you here. If I can get it loaded up fast enough for you. Let's see, where'd it go?
I might have to send Niall some good coffee.
Yeah, send him some good
he can just drink black. Just straight regular coffee.
Yeah.
I can't find where I just put this. Hang on.
There is a significant chasm between the two major ideologies here in the States, and it's close. It's scary. As close as it's ever been since the last Civil War to a civil war. But the problem is that that's not going to happen. The people that are making the most noise and complaining the most are a minority. And the people that want to have some kind of semblance of how we used to do things and how we used to look at things are a majority. And people have gotten to the point where they went, we've seen enough shenanigans. We've put up with enough, nicey talk. But it's now, that's a good one.
That pretty much describes most Trump voters.
Yeah. He looks, Mel Gibson in the Braveheart shot, looks exactly like the guy who was arrested with the fucking, buffalo helmet on him going through the.
And you know what?
Building.
They've got films of him doing absolutely nothing wrong.
Being led around by the guards, showing rooms, unlocking doors.
The guards are showing him where he could go stand and all this. All he did was shout and
do some weird
smile until. And there's actually videos of him telling everybody else, when we go in here, act right, act orderly, act peaceful. He didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's a very much generalization. I happen to know that there's one very he's famous in heavy metal circles. A guy called John Schaefer from a band.
He was released too, by the way.
Yeah, and
who was the musician?
Musician was John Schaefer, and he was part of this right wing group, and they all went in with bear spray, and pepper spray, but bear spray, and they were filmed in the lobby, taking out their bear spray, and they sprayed in the guard's face and all that kind of stuff. So there's no doubt that there was a group of.
There was a handful compared to there were over 500,000, over 500,000 pro-Trump people at the rally on the Capitol steps. Only about 100 to 150 of them rioted.
Yeah.
And they were the extremists, and everybody else went home.
And the other thing is you don't
500,000 people.
Who would have thought that they could have taken over the Capitol with no arms? There was no guns.
And I just heard a good point. I just heard it put this way today.
It's like,
just today or yesterday, they said Trump was actually the person in power on January 6th. When has anybody ever led a coup against his own government?
Well, I'm glad you said that, Scotty, because I'll definitely let you go out. But somebody you all know on this channel, but I'm not going to mention his name because he hasn't been on for a while. But he said, "Now, do you realize that Trump could have led a coup d'etat on that day?"
Sure.
And I was like, "Really? Yeah. Oh, yeah. He could have, and even if the generals and the military disagreed with him, oh yeah, and if they violently disagreed with him, well, he could order them all shot." I said, "Really? Would he have had that power?" He says, "Yeah."
It all depends on if we were in a war status or not. Every American citizen has a right to.
No, what I mean is, if the military denied, if he said,
the military could have shot him in a conflict, they would have had to go up for trial. Every American citizen has a right to jurisprudence, or our system of jurisprudence, which is due process.
Yeah.
And
but
it doesn't matter if they led an insurrection or not.
Trump could have had a coup d'etat with the military on his side. And my point was, if the military did not agree to be on his side, would he still have the ability to hold a coup d'etat? And my friend said yes.
I will tell you something. If he was trying to persuade the military to be in his coup d'etat, we would already know about that.
Yeah,
there would be so many singing individuals on that, because there were people in the military that didn't like him. So I'm going to tell you what, Trump, if he had the military in his pocket, that's a conspiracy theory in the theory category, because there's no way he could have had that and either not had the coup d'etat or not been found guilty already. So,
interesting point, though. All right, guys, I'll let you go.
There it is.
Sorry. Forgive me if I offended anybody.
No.
Hell no.
No, Niall.
I love this.
You were juicy red meat.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much. I think
you were our chum.
Phrasing.
No, that's the next channel I'm going on to. Yeah.
It was a lot of fun, Niall. No, nobody should take any offense at anything you said.
Yeah.
The only thing I do is I would encourage you to get to know and have conversations with people who support Trump for the right reasons, not just because they go along with the conservative crowd.
Yeah.
but because I would say, get to know the other side of the coin.
Yeah,
And you're going to
it's
see a
not
lot
just about
different
this either.
material.
It's not just
Yeah,
about this. It's not
it's
just about this.
it's
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah.
It's good to red team things.
Mm.
And I'm putting this in a way that you being on a more liberal side. So red teaming in the Army is that'd be op4, right? You're opposing force when you're training, you're having an exercise, and the entire goal of op4, right, or your red team, is to think and operate as the opposition does. So that way, when the regular force trains against op4, against the red team, they learn, right? So if for no other reason, just do it to red team it, so you can figure out how the quote unquote enemy thinks.
It's like the enemy within, or the psychological profiling of somebody from the other side, or another way of thinking, another ideology. I do draw judgments against Trump. I've outlined them, but as Robert and Scotty have outlined, a lot of them make me sound kind of superficial, and
No.
I just don't like the guy.
All it sounds like to me, Niall, frankly, is that he's somebody that you've watched from afar and you've chosen not to like, based mostly on the reinforcement of those who don't like Trump, who are mostly predominant in the press in the United States, are pushing that narrative.
Yeah,
and
perhaps.
You talk like somebody who's outside the country, who doesn't really have a finger on the pulse, because you haven't really needed to.
Yeah. Can't fault you on that.
I would say if you want to find out what the other side is thinking, I can give you some places to go look, and you can make up your own mind.
I'll let you know. But I mean, I certainly wouldn't be alone in Europe. In fact, you could speak to anybody in Europe. You'd be hard pressed to find anybody on the streets of Amsterdam or Dublin or anywhere who has a good word to say about Trump. And
I would challenge them to say, how do you know what you think you know?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and I do think that sometimes a picture paints 1,000 words, and I sometimes I look at that man, and I look at his stupid hairstyle.
But a picture can be edited to say different groups of 1,000
I look
words.
at his smug way of walking across the tarmac, and I think that guy is the worst thing that America needs. That's the last thing he needs. I even look at, he has golf courses over here in Ireland, and I look at him at the golf course, and he has, he insists that everyone stands like 50 feet away from him when he's taking a putt. And I'm saying, what a dick, and everything screams, I'm not a very smart guy.
We went to get Sean Astin's autograph on his book, and we had his handlers telling us we had to stand 20 feet away.
That stupid thing that he did, where he walked across the road with the Bible held upside down, it was the most ridiculous photo.
That did not happen, Niall.
No,
that did not happen. The drinking bleach didn't happen. The Fine People hoax in Charlottesville didn't happen.
See, this,
hold on, wait. Walking across to the church didn't happen? That happened.
No, he did hold up the Bible upside down.
No, it did not happen.
It didn't happen.
Check it out.
Well,
look for the original photographs.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there's a list of 20 hoax, a lot of which Niall has gone through, but and Niall, I wasn't thinking or suggesting that your position on Trump is superficial. What I said was that it's all personality based. Mm-hmm. It's not about the results, the policies, the actions that he actually did that benefited a whole shitload of people. But there's a list of 20 hoaxes, and it's even longer than 20. They stopped at 20 because it almost becomes a laundry list of bullshit. But every one of the things that you've heard about Trump as being a hoax or as being something that he did, the only thing that's been verified is grabbing him by the pussy. And that's like, well, okay, that's locker room talk. And how many guys haven't said something like that while you're, with a bunch of other guys. But
Dude,
outside,
how many women haven't said something like that? Come down to a motor pool
I
with
would
female
say,
mechanics.
I would
I'll
say,
tell you
Robert,
what.
and
I
just
would say the vast majority of guys wouldn't say anything like that, even in a locker room. I mean, again,
That's not to
down to
condone it. I'm
personality.
just saying.
yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
condoning it. It's just the
Uh,
way. It's just general guy
So
talk.
the
It wasn't
Bible thing was a
meant-
hoax. The Bible thing was a hoax. Is that
Yes,
what you're saying?
look it up.
What was
Okay.
what was the hoax? What was the hoax on it? Whether they walked over to the old church or whether he held the Bible upside down.
So there was two components. One was that he had everything cleared so that he could go take the photo op, and the
Right.
second was that the Bible was upside down. Neither are true. Go look at it.
Wow. Okay, I'll check that out.
If you just
I'll
take
admit
narrative,
I didn't know that.
if you like the fine people hoax, there's fine people on both sides of the aisle here. What's happened?
yeah.
They've taken and they've edited just the part that they want to use. It's just like
They
when
don't
he said,
take the whole statement, because I heard him talk about the whole statement.
and he said,
And I
and
went
I'm
back and looked at the whole statement.
right after
Not
he
what he
said
said.
that, he
Same
said,
with the bleach
"I'm
thing.
talking about the Nazis over here." He specifically called it out and said he's not talking about that, but that's not the information or the clip that was given to the public.
Right.
So it's all been manipulated to try to create this image of this nasty guy. It's just
And
like,
by the way, there are good people on both sides statement, the context that they never showed you, he was talking about the people who were against having the Confederate statues.
yes,
He's saying those people, he says, there are good people on both sides of this argument. He wasn't talking about the Nazis.
no,
Yeah.
But they
and
made it sound
said
like
he
he was.
Yeah,
But
You got to go back to the footage. And so it's all this
yeah.
kind of stuff that
I'll just
you
leave you
look at and you go,
with this
it's a
final
railroad.
thought. From my point of view, and a lot of huge amount of people I know, I think he's a very smart man, but I don't think he's a very intelligent man. And
you could be the leader in Ireland that is pro-Trump. When you say, you know what, I believed all this stuff about Trump, and now that I've looked at it,
But he
I
wouldn't
was
be a man.
misled.
He wouldn't be a man that I would trust as far as
Sure.
I could throw him.
Well,
And
that mistrust has a basis in something.
yes,
It was founded in something, and I would guarantee you that the things that you could give me a bullet point list of the reasons why you distrust him, there's probably a falsehood behind every one of those from what I have seen.
Yep.
Trump is not pure as the driven snow. I don't think kids should go out and make Trump snow angels in the wintertime. I don't think Trump is, this glorious, bright, shining bastion of virtue. I don't. He's a businessman who became the president of the United States, and he's got a goal. He wants to make America better.
he's the
That's
asshole.
all there is about Trump. He's the asshole. Yeah, he's the
Asshole we
asshole that
need.
wants to make America better.
all right. So
And, fix it.
I'll leave
So-
you with this. What if he doesn't do it again? Who else is left? If, one or two. There's a hesitation there. I think you're putting all your eggs in the one basket. That's the problem.
I'll put all my eggs into a different basket once that basket comes along. If it comes down to who I'm going to vote for president, if you have a divided party, I'm sorry, if you vote your conscience and I got to go vote for this guy over in this party, but I don't want the guy that's on the other side of, you know what you're doing? You're splitting the vote in the party. Sometimes you got to suck it up and go, there might be a better human being than this guy, but this guy is going to get done what needs done. I may not agree with him on every point, but if I don't vote for him, for sure, I'm getting the other guy.
I mean,
Which I
quite
know will
frankly,
ruin
I
it.
would like to see.
So.
I would like to see third-party options actually
Sure.
become something that, people would have the intestinal fortitude to actually vote for.
Well, this is like Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Yeah.
Great
I'd put
guy.
him in
I'd vote for him in a heartbeat.
immediately.
But you know what? He's a Democrat, but you know where he's going to pull votes from? He'll pull the conservative vote.
That's
He's
right.
not going to pull the Democratic vote. The Democrats don't want him because he's too
afraid of it.
conservative. So he would pull conservative voters.
Yeah.
So what would that do?
He's a Kennedy Democrat,
The
and
people
like
who are voting
Kennedy in the
Democrat
classic
aren't
term.
changing their vote, but the
Okay.
people voting.
Guys, I'm
When
going to
you
let
have
you
more
go.
than one guy, so that's the way it works. It's easier to fool
Later,
people
Niall.
than to
Yeah.
convince them that they've been fooled. So
I'm
said
going to
Mark.
drive down the road, see if I can get into Trump's golf course. You know, it's not far
There you
from
go.
here.
There you go.
See if
All
they
right.
serve you just a black cup of coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
Look
a
after
lousy
yourselves.
cup of coffee. See
Take
you,
care.
Niall.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Later, man.
All right, guys. Now, guess what we're going to do? We're going to wrap this whole show up.
Probably a good idea. It's late.
So, yeah, it's we've gone. This is the longest show we've done for a long time. See, you get into a topic you want to be invested in, you can't stop talking. So,
Yeah, and I just want to point out that this one was not my fault.
no, this was not Professor Bauer prompted.
You cannot pin this extended session on me.
Well,
And
obviously, it
I-
wasn't your fault. We weren't talking about AI.
That's right. So, and I like the fact that Niall asked his questions and brought up his concerns. That's beautiful. Let's talk about that stuff. That's what people need to do that so we can communicate about it. So, anyway, there we go.
Dialogue again.
All right, Jason, have fun making your hat. However late you're going to stay up doing that.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
All right. Is that my hat you're working on, by the way? No, because I didn't have the fancy brim on mine.
I didn't even get any of your hat measurement. Look, you and Wendy are like the worst people at getting any sort of hat measurements.
Well, here, let's see. I can tell you right now.
Shit, now I need to find a pen.
Here, watch. Let's see. Go that way.
Oh,
So there and there, and so from there I can go there. And
That's-
wow,
That's
I'm
not how that works.
24 inches around my head. I think I need a tape measure.
Yeah,
Or I heard Penman said to me, he says, if anybody has a problem, tie a string around your head, leave enough room for a couple of fingers in there, tie a string around, take it off, measure it.
Yep.
You'll have your measurement right there.
Yep.
So
Pretty simple, tried and true
yes,
way of doing it.
all right, Professor, I'm letting you go. See you
I'm out.
later.
Thank you, gentlemen. It was a great time.
It was a fun time.
Good combo, guys.
All right, Jason,
ready, break.
you have fun. You have fun sewing there. I'll get you my hat measurement, and
All
I gotta
right.
get you a logo. How about
Okay.
that?
Sounds good.
I got a couple of days to do one now. Go figure.
Right.
All right, you have a
Well, I
good
look
night.
forward to it. All right.
See you,
Later.
brother. And everybody else, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the show tonight. That ran a long time, longer than normal, but you know what? It was fun, wasn't it? We will do this again on Friday. Maybe not the same exact way, maybe not the same exact length of time, but we're going to do it. And you know what? While you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here because I'm shutting this down. Have a good night. Live long and prosper.